All right, there that is, and then switch over to this.
Well, I remember a teacher that I had. Now, I went through the seventh grade. I went to the seventh grade. I left home when I was 10 years old because I was hungry. And I used to, this is true. I work in the summer, I go to school in the winter. But I had this one teacher. He was the principal of the Harrison School in Vincennes, Indiana. To me, this was the greatest teacher, a real sage of my time, anyhow. He had such wisdom. And we were all reciting the Pledge of Allegiance one day. And he walked over, this little old teacher. Mr. Laswell was his name. Mr. Laswell, he says, he says, I've been listening to you boys and girls recite the Pledge of Allegiance all semester, and it seems as though it's becoming monotonous to you. If I may I recite it and try to explain to you the meaning of each word. I, me, an individual, a committee of one, pledge, dedicate all of my worldly goods to give without self-pity, allegiance, my love and my devotion to the flag, our standard, Old Glory, a symbol of freedom. Wherever she waves, there's respect, because your loyalty has given her a dignity that shouts freedom is everybody's job. United. That means that we have all come together. States, individual communities that have united into 48 great states. 48 individual communities with pride and dignity and purpose. All divided with imaginary boundaries, yet united to a common purpose, and that's love for country. And to the republic, a state in which sovereign power is invested in representatives chosen by the people to govern. And government is the people, and it's from the people to the leaders, not from the leaders to the people, for which it stands. One nation, meaning so blessed by God, indivisible, incapable of being divided, with liberty, which is freedom, the right of power to live one's own life without threats, fear, or some sort of retaliation. And justice, the principle or qualities of dealing fairly with others. For all, which means, boys and girls, it's as much your country as it is mine. And now, boys and girls, let me hear you recite the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Since I was a small boy, 2 states have been added to our country, and 2 words have been added to the Pledge of Allegiance: under God. Wouldn't it be a pity if someone said that is a prayer and that would be eliminated from schools too?
You are listening to Disclaimers by Davidlee Buess and Edward Johnston. Today is September 18th, 2017. Take it away, guys.
Thank you. We'd like to thank you for joining us this evening. We got a lot more education that we're getting out tonight. We've had some successes. But I wanted to get into a couple things before we got into to the Fair Act, and but people could comprehend how the system is working and how you have to work the system. It's like I get people all the time going, it's not supposed to work this way, and they're supposed to do this, and they're supposed to do that. No, wake up. Number one is you have to prove if you're lawful or legal. I just had that discussion on Guerrilla Radio with Austin Thomas the other day and his crew, and they were like, they got to the point where they didn't want to hear about bloodline and people's rights anymore. You know, everybody has a right, and this country's open to everybody in the world. And I hate to tell you, folks, this country is not open to the world. You have to wake up and come to some point of reality. How are your grandchildren going to eat? How are they going to have water? How is your bloodline going to survive? Just because you do not have a bloodline, all right, doesn't mean that your relatives or somebody else doesn't have a bloodline in this country to survive on. And if we don't protect our rights, and people will say, the Constitution doesn't belong to us. Yes, it does. Even if you're a legal immigrant, because when you become lawful, that instrument is to protect us from churches, religion, the government. Because until you folks start comprehending the real reality here, that your churches and your courts are run by the Vatican through the court system. All right? I mean, even a church member, a pastor could go to the judge and make a deal with a judge to get people off. And it works that way. This is real, folks. So when you're letting religion run your courtrooms instead of common sense, that's the point. Common sense. Oh, that's right. There's no such thing as common sense, is there? If you want common sense, that means there's no democracy, because that means we have to be on the same page of one man and one woman's right, not privileges. The Bible makes sure that you have a privilege. The Bible gives you no rights. And you better really read the Bible and comprehend it, including when it gets into the part about God is Satan. It says it right in the Bible itself. Which disturbs me is I get people want to argue this, like the talk show I was on over the weekend, and people want to argue about stuff they have no knowledge because they're going by and that's what I found out. A lot of these people I've been having some conversations with are immigrants. Okay? And then they got these immigrants from England trying to put their English crap in our country. Sorry, we won the war. We don't want your British structure in our territory or our land. We don't want it. You know, we want to be free. We want our children to grow up and be free. We want them to not be on computer games. We want them to actually go out in the world and go climb trees, go swimming in the rivers and streams. And then if something happens, well, then that's up to the parents to educate their children. That's the thing called personal responsibility. And it's like, it makes you wonder if anybody's ever heard of personal responsibility. And it's really disturbing because you bitch at the people in the courthouse for not filing your paperwork. You bitch about the judge. He's supposed to know your rights. The judge is supposed to handle these things in these positions. Remember, the judge, and comprehend this, and I mean comprehend it. Your judge works for the British government. That's it. He doesn't work for you, the people. He works for the British government called the corporation. He's there to make money for the corporation, and that corporation is, and if you actually do the research, the Vatican claims that they own all the banks. The Vatican claims they own all the land around here. They don't have a right to own anything. Banks can't own land, and the government can own land. The government is we the people. Your elected and public servants corporations cannot own land, and technically they're not even supposed to sell public land. And that's the one thing we want to work on, getting some lawsuits filed on that one, some affidavits filed on that one. Because it's up to us to protect our bloodline. It's up to us to protect this country. And everybody keeps going, oh, well, they need this and they need that. And it's like, quit whining. You know, it really gets very frustrating when people sit there and whine instead of standing up for themselves, educating themselves. I get in conversations with people all week long that tell me, oh, they should be having this, and this is the way it's supposed to be done, and this is the way it's supposed to be handled. Well, if it's supposed to be handled that way, then handle it. You're supposed to be a responsible adult. It's your responsibility. Okay? And I go along with the Great Spirit, and that's the way I look at the Great Spirit. And that's my big point is the Great Spirit, Mother Earth, and, the Creator. Because, see, we don't know about God when it comes down to it. And if you actually go through the German history books of their religion, God is the devil. But people don't read the real stuff. They just go by what they're told. They don't do research. They don't investigate. They go by what they're told, and that's what they go by. And that's the saddest part that we're living today, is that people are not researching and verifying how courts are supposed to work. I'm putting together this affidavit. I've been working on it for the last couple of weeks, as people know. I want to make sure when I put it together there's no loopholes in it. I want to make sure it's about as airtight can be. Because if you're going to use something that I suggest to put up there, or Dave and I put up there, it's your responsibility. We are not attorneys. We are not lawyers. We're just the guys, I'm just the guy that's hit by the turnip truck, still hanging on the bumper. You know, and Dave's over on the East Coast, and he's been fighting the wind and storms over there. And this is the bottom line that comes down to, folks, is that it's your responsibility. And Dave and I do not have a problem helping out, but we do have a problem when it comes down to it, when it feels like we're just wasting our time with some people. And that's what I felt with some people, wasting my time. It's very frustrating with that point of wasting one's time. I've helped a lot of people out that I sat there and they want to complain about their attorney, and the judges do this. Okay, write it up. Prove it. You write it up. Okay, now you got something that we can stand on. Once you got the standing, then we can go on it. But people, you have to file on the judges. You have to file on these public pretenders. And I mean, also too, I fire every time I have a public pretender, I fire them. You know, and they keep telling me, you can't do this and you can't do that. Yes, I can. Yes, you can. Once you have the strength in your soul and you have the audacity to stand up and insert your rights, It's like I was talking to a guy earlier today, and it's like, well, the judge told me this, and the judge told me that, and I don't have this right, and I don't have that right, because the judge said this. And I said, you know this part of the law? And he goes, yeah. And he said, how come you're not quoting that back to the judge? How come you're not filing the affidavit and claiming that right in that court case? Well, the judge said this. I said, that's all hearsay, and you're letting the judge talk you out of not filing. And then you want to bitch because you're the one that's failing? See, this is the point that, folks, is not arguing with your point, is not getting frustrated with the structure with people. It is called common sense and knowing how to stand your ground. That's why some people get upset with what they call the stand your ground law. Well, I don't have a problem with the stand your ground law because I want things not to be controlled by a man like, what is his name? First President George Bush said. Okay, you know, we need to rule of man, not the rule of the jungle. Yes, we need the rule of the jungle. Because if you have the rule of man, it's like there's another court case where a 17-year-old kid walked into a lady's house stealing her stuff, and she shot and killed him. And then these people are whining in the news, and they're whining, saying, the lady shouldn't have shot him. They should have called the police, and the police should have dealt with him. And then the other thing, I was so glad that they actually put that on the mainstream news. She said, well, how do you expect us in the hood to get our... And that's what she said, not me. How do you expect people in the hood to get their TVs and stuff without stealing them? It's like, get a job. Go earn it. Barter it. Figure it somewhere out. You don't have to steal from somebody else because you're too damn lazy. That's the problem with people. They're too damn lazy. You know, it's like growing food, collecting water. I preach that all the time. How do you expect your generations and your bloodline to exist if you're not providing for them? It's your responsibility to provide for them. And it's just because you don't have the ability to, okay. But if you have the ability with soil around you, you can grow fruit and vegetables. If you have the ability around you, You collect rainwater. And don't tell me the state says I can't collect rainwater. I don't want to hear that. Do it. You have a God, or I'm going to use the term that most people like to use, God-given right, but I go by the Great Spirit. But you have the right by the Creator to have the rainwater. You have the right to have food on your table. You have the right to go hunting and fishing without paying the king's wage, unless you are an immigrant or elected and public servants, because under March 9th, 1933 Bankruptcy Act, and when you read it, when they got a paycheck, the public servants now had an income, so they're supposed to keep that part of the system going, paying that system to get a hunting and fishing license, driver's license, administration and business fees. They're supposed to keep that part going. If you're lawful, you're not supposed to participate in that, and technically we're supposed to be autographing our structure, and we're still putting that together, and we're still doing research and trying to get that one so it's pat. We don't want to get caught up with, like some other people have done this, and they charge people, and then some people end up going to jail for stuff they shouldn't go to jail for. That is the one thing that Dave and I do not sit there and try to charge people or set people up so they end up in jail. Now, we've got 2 other victories this month for rights to travel cases. They went through, they fought hard, and then when both people went to court, it was interesting. They waited until the last case on the docket, the very last case on the docket. And then they sat there, and the judge got up and said, well, everything's done today. And they're like, what? And it's like they were getting upset, and it's like, no, your case was dismissed. Comprehend how they work their system. Comprehend how they use different wording. And that's the bottom line. You have to start paying attention to what's going on around you in the courtrooms. We got another case over in Kansas City I'm dealing with. Another rights to travel case, and they're panicking over that because we're serving them so that way they go to jail. And that's what we're going to be getting into as soon as I get up the deal here, and I'll get back into that after I turn the floor over to Dave here in a minute. But I want you to comprehend, even the rights to travel. Type in Janet Reno, right to travel. Janet Reno, former state attorney general that assassinated everybody at Waco. She even wrote clearly you have a right to travel without a license. So that is the bottom line, folks, is knowing your rights, knowing if you're lawful and legal, knowing your status, and knowing your condition of your status. You have to know your status when you go to court. You have to know your standing when you go to court. And I don't recommend courts. I don't even recommend anybody buying land through mortgage companies. Private land deal, and then when you do the contract, because the contracts today with land says that I shall do what the city, state, and county and administrative rules and the preacher tells me to do. And some of your land contracts, when you're buying a land through a mortgage company, truly actually states, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that I shall do what the ministry tells me. Read the fine print. See, that's the one thing. People don't read the fine print on these things when they sign a contract. Okay? It's like when I just been in and out of the hospital last week for my lungs again. And when I went in, the lady reception comes back to me and goes, I need your signature on these paperwork. And I said, well, I don't sign autographs, so I doctored the paperwork up. So I did my deal, all rights reserved, my structure, I already got filed in the hospital. And that's the bottom line. I did all that. And then she comes back to me, and I said, I want the copies. And she's like, well, I'm going to bring you back the originals, Ed. We're not keeping the originals. You have the originals. And that's when I go in the hospital now. I get the originals, not copies. Remember, they're a fictitious corporation. And it's knowing how to talk to these people, giving some common courtesy when you do have people that comprehend what's going on. I mean, there are doctors and attorneys and lawyers that are finally picking up on this. And so the thing is that we need to educate them, help them out. And when they're standing up for the right reasons and the right things, that's when we need to stand up and help them. It's our responsibility to help our friends and neighbors. You know, that is the point. And I see that, you know, it's one of those things that, you know, it's our responsibility to help these people out, to comprehend their situation of public service. And public service goes all the way back to the Treaty of 1213 for all those. And if you have never read the beginning of time, the Devil's Contract, I encourage you to read the Treaty of 1213. Everybody wants to quote the Magna Carta, but you have no idea what the Treaty of 1213 that gave you the Magna Carta that you're claiming. Oh, wait a minute. You can't claim it. It's in England. We're not a British colony. And that's the one thing you got to comprehend. We are not a British colony. And we're going to have that I'm working on right now. And we're going to have that stated out because we got congressional records that even says that we're not. Going back to I think it was 1771, something like that. Dealing with the Constitution form because they announced the colonies and basically claimed us as Americans on the land.
Preamble to the Constitution.
Thank you, Dave. Yes. So, anyhow, like I said, we got some victories going on. They are working, and it's up to you to start paying attention, work with them. Listen to what's going on. You got questions, we will answer questions. We don't have an issue with that. But also, too, it is also, too, that you have to file your correct paperwork. If you do not file your correct paperwork, how do you expect them to honor you? And yes, some of these people are going to yell and scream and panic because some of them don't know. Some of them do know, and they want their high paycheck because they know if they get convictions on the statutory stuff, okay, that it's a conviction. They know it's a conviction for them, and they get a bonus in their paycheck and retirement funds. These people don't care about you. They don't care about their own children. Most of them don't. The British never cared about their children. They were always taught to just bring them up, throw them out in the street. And if you go back in real Britain history, the kids back then were always put on the street about 14 to 16 years old. And that's the point to know how it is with history compared to what we get taught. That's why I ask people to do the research.
The
you
movie
know.
Annie.
Go ahead, Dave.
Say the movie Annie proved it. They
Well,
threw their out on the street.
Mm-hmm. Well, and the other good movie that we recommend is Interstate 60. Really watch it a couple times and watch how your court system truly works. You know, it's up to you to know how your court system works. It's like there's a court case that a lady went to the school district in a state because the state was giving her kid, an underage kid, transgender treatment. The kid doesn't have a right. And that's the point. We got to start standing up for this. End the children. Your neighbor's children. Your bloodline of this country. Because if we lose the bloodline of this country, and everybody says, well, the Constitution don't apply to me again. And it's like, you're not comprehending this fact. The Constitution is a contract like the British contract that the Vatican has with the Queen of England to control England. The Vatican owns England. And you always say the Rothschilds, they control everything. The Rothschilds are run by the banks. The banks are run by the Vatican. So learn who's running who, learn who's writing what, learn who's doing what. That is the point. You've got to start standing up and putting these pieces together instead of going off on these tangents. And I'm not saying that I've never done it. I've done it a lot. I've done it a lot in the past. But also, too, I had to start opening my eyes to it. I had to start looking at the things and go, well, wait a minute, this needs to be done here. This needs to be done that. How do I change this? How do I be successful in this case? How do I write this one up? And it is by digging the research out. It is by doing the research and putting it together. That is the one thing that when you start putting this together, okay, once you start putting this stuff together in your affidavits, it's like the Supreme Court says that an attorney can only represent a corporation. That was John F. Kennedy's case with the Foreign Administration Registration Act. And that's where I'm going. We're going to start reading some of this stuff with that. That's why I want you guys to comprehend and read this Foreign Registration Act. Because these are the things that need to be filed on these elected and public servants who are failing in their positions of employment. We know it. We have their contracts written up. That's Title V, Section 3331 through 3333. If they don't honor their oath of service, they're not entitled to a paycheck. And that's what we have to stand up for on the paychecks on these people. You know, we have to sit there and file these things on these individuals. And I'm getting ready to start doing a whole bunch of filing here pretty soon, but I'm trying to get them all together so I can basically file them all at one shot. Because I want to get some of this stuff filed in one shot and moved on, because once we start getting this stuff moved on and we start claiming our status, and that is the big thing too, is knowing where you are going to court and claiming your status in court. If you don't claim your status in court, you're nobody. That's the bottom line. You know, you have to make sure that the court knows who you are when you go in. You have to direct the court on how they're supposed to do their employment status. And yes, we know they yell and scream and they fight and they do all this stuff. We know all this. But the point being is that once we start working together and we start reading everybody's affidavits, and we post them. Now, Dave and I on new.org and trackers, we do have a public notice bulletin board up there. And if you're filing stuff, please send it to us. We'll make sure it's posted up there because it's public now. It's a public notice bulletin board. So then that way you know it's public, and anybody wants to say something indifferent, it's there. You got it. It's done. You got a background check, you need something done, you can go there and look at somebody else's case. See how somebody else is working their case. See how they're winning their cases. You know, that's the whole point of all this, is working together so we all know who, what, why, and how. And if we don't...
Nowhere, Edward, in our public system is there a place where affidavits can actually be put as public notice if it's not our website.
Oh, yes. That's the one thing that I suggest to everybody. When you do an affidavit, make sure you hang it up at the county commissioner building. Make sure that you hang it up at the museum. Make sure you give a copy to your local newspaper. Doesn't matter if they're going to publish it or not, just as long as they have it for file, because your newspaper will keep it for record. Those are the things that need to be brought to the attention of how to do this. And also, too, when you're filing your affidavits, the rights to travel and your rights to hunt and fish to prove your bloodline, you want to make sure you get it recorded with the Secretary of State. Because when it's recorded with the Secretary of State, now you've got some standing. They know what's going on. And that's the one thing that Dave and I in our big cases that we wrote and put up, even for the separation of lawful and legal in the country for Judge Scalia, that was filed in the Secretary of State and filed in the House and Senate of Oregon and recorded in public hearings, and it's in public record. And not one senator or the governor said anything against it. So this is the thing that when we're working on these things, it's like with the Foreign Registration Act, 1938, Foreign Agents Registration Act. They put that in place for immigration for World War II. And everybody says, well, I have a right to be in this country. I was born here. Federal law and the 14th Amendment, and let me clarify with the 14th Amendment. 14th Amendment clearly states there's a definition or distinction between natural born and citizen of the United States. We're working on getting some of the citizen part because that's a slavery. Natural born, natural. All right, and if you look at native and natural, the same word, that's over 100 years. That's 5 generations. That's in the court cases, too, in the 14th Amendment, Section 1 of the 14th Amendment. Please read it. Don't interpret it. Read what the words say. And remember, when something says national or citizen, that means it's a British subject. That's a foreign agent. That is not bloodline. That is not rights to have your rights to travel and hunt and fish in this country.
That would be treason.
Go ahead.
That would be treason.
Yes.
It's, I believe, the preamble of the Constitution is part of the Constitution. We're to have nothing to do with the British government. So if we're not to have anything to do with the British government, anything to do with the British government would be treason against the Constitution.
Mm-hmm.
So people need to comprehend the fact that they need to comprehend the preamble to the Constitution.
Go ahead, Dave. The floor is yours.
It's basically had a very simple solution. In 2002, we the people, for constitutional education, put forth a redress of grievance to the Congress of the United States. And Congress refused repeatedly to adhere to our redress of grievance. Congress, therefore, committed high treason against the Constitution because we, the people, are the government. What was the thing we played with Red Skelton and his explanation of the Pledge of Allegiance?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, think about that. Our Congress denied we, the people, a redress of grievance over tax fraud.
Mm-hmm. And
Mr. Trump today is ignoring rulings, key case rulings of the United States Supreme Court relating to taxes. Tonight, this very night, they're having a meeting to discuss tax reform. So I would love to be a mouse in the corner on that deal.
Oh, you know I would love to be a mouse in the corner on that deal.
Because I guarantee you, Mr. Trump has sent those 60 rulings of the Supreme Court, as was the Department of Justice, as was the IRS. All of these little snakes in the grass wish to ignore this nation's highest court and fraudulently present tax law.
Mm-hmm.
That's treason, people.
And file it, people. That's what we need to start filing, these treason charges on these men and women. You know, when you're filing a court case with a clerk of the clerk, and I put that up, and we have that information, and I think I got a template up on our wall, and if not, I'll make sure it's up here this week. But we have a deal that you can file on the clerk, male or female clerk, themselves, and if they violate the Constitution by not filing your paperwork, they go to jail. That's mandatory by federal and state law.
I got the clerk of this United States Supreme Court fired for tampering with the U.S. mail. It was addressed to the Chief Justice, not the clerk of the court.
Say that again, Dave.
I got the clerk of the court to the U.S. Supreme Court terminated because he tampered with the U.S. mail, because my certified mail, priority mail certified, he opened it, and it wasn't addressed to him.
People, are you comprehending what Dave is explaining this? So somebody else cannot open the mail that's addressed to a judge or a clerk.
That's exactly right. even the clerk of the court has not the authority to open a letter addressed to the Chief Justice.
You know? And that is the one fact.
And I filed criminal charges against him with the federal government, Department of Justice.
Yeah, we got to get those up on the website. People can see that, Dave, so that way they can probably use some of your ideas on it.
I don't know if I still have it since they I got my hard drive, but I'll see if I got it on a backup disk. But if I have it, I'll send it to you.
But these are the points that me and Dave were making to you, folks. I have
a hard copy of it. If I have a hard copy, I'll scan it and mail it to you.
But that's what we're explaining to you, because this is what's going on. In the last 3 months, I filed on several court cases for people. And, they go in and they win. And I filed the Foreign Administration Registration Act on, 9 judges already. 8 of them threw the case out of court. 1 is still battling over it because they're so deep involved in the court case. They're dealing with a native. And that's the one thing that you got to realize, that native men and women have rights, not privileges. And the treaties that the Indians have, the native people. And remember, it doesn't just say Indians when you read the treaty. It says native. Okay? And when it says native, that means white, Chinese, black, whatever color you are. Zebra stripe, it doesn't matter. You're native here. You're not an immigrant. You're not a foreign agent. And even immigration has to register with the Foreign Registration Act. And if they don't, they can be deported. And I've already sent a thing on that, endorsing that to a judge that was dealing with Trump's, border deal. And that's what I'm trying to get other people to write these judges. Because once the judges hear from you and they realize that people are standing up, saying we want the wall up, we want the borders closed down, we don't want this freedom coming in where people can sit there and take our food, cut our trees down, destroy our food, wildlife. Once the trees are gone, you got no food. We already got Fukushima and Hanford over here in the West Coast that's leaking like crazy, destroying the environment, and the government won't even, elected and public servants won't even talk about that, because they're making too much money off it, coming off the backside of writing it off on people's strawman accounts.
Well, by treaty, every tree that is cut down, $3 must be donated to the Indians. Indian
Nation.
That's right. How many people are paying that one? They come in and they clear land. How much of that land that was cleared and how many trees were cut? And the stump fee was paid.
Mm-hmm. And that's exactly what it is, stump fee. And that's the point, that we've got to get this stuff working in these things. We have a system that has been written and put in place. I watch these other people that are writing their own court deals coming up, and they're writing their own structure, trying to get people to get involved, paying $40 a month, and then that way they could have their own court structure, and they got somebody standing up for their court. People, it doesn't work that way. We have a structure in place. If we actually stand for the structure we have in place.
Well, you've got to remember, too, Ed, that Indians, being self-governed, have the right to form their own courts.
Isn't that called a tribal court?
Any Native American
mm-hmm.
has the right to file a case in an Indian tribal court.
That's right.
They don't need permission of the government to form a court. It's already granted to them in treaty.
Well, permission from the public servants, that's a fact. You don't ask permission from your mommy and daddy now when you get out the house, do you? Why are you doing that to the state? Then the state just came out and said that the British government just had an article came out 2 weeks ago and said the state owns your children. In England, your state owns the children. In the state, in our country, the state owns your children because when you register your children with the state, you're giving ownership to your children over the state. Makes logical sense when you look at it. But it's knowing how to file, knowing how to stand up on these things. Go ahead, Dave.
I'm sorry, Ed. I was preoccupied.
Okay, no problem. Take the floor for a minute.
Say that again, Ed.
I said take the floor a minute. I have to take care of something real quick.
Oh, okay. Well, we have I want Michelle to read something on conflict of interest here. Here, let me read that to you.
I was just reading a letter that I had drafted up, and I sent it to Dave, and there was a sentence that I wanted to. I couldn't remember anyway. I found it, and it's in my documentation. This has to do with conflict. Hang on a minute. Excuse me. I got to clear my throat. This is what I have in my paragraph. It says, when a person stands to gain advantage from playing both sides of the street, he is said to have a conflict of interest. Now, I'm talking about jurisdiction pertaining to the courts. So that was a sentence that I wanted to remember, and I found it. Then this is a fact, okay? These are facts that I'm citing. Another statement that I make. It says, quo pro quo, literally this for that. It is the heart and soul of contract law. One part gives a promise, the other side agrees. The two are bound. This for that, this so few persons are able to complete their bargains is no measure of the system that will fix your broken promises if you know how to use it. Excuse me. The system works for those who know the law and knows how to be heard in court. So I will try to use the system as quo pro quo, do my part. So I will do my part. That is the quid, or the quid. Anyway, these are things I have in a documentation that I sent to Dave. I was going to print it out. I can't print it out because we're using the phone line. But I'm going to print it out because there's some really good information in this document. But it was a notice to public official, officer, and or agent. Anyway, so that's what I was reading to Dave, and it also has to do with the treason regarding the First Amendment, citizens' lien against treason. That's what I was talking about in this document. Anyway, I'll give you back to Dave.
Okay, I'm back.
Thank you, Michelle, for that input on the conflict. People are not aware of what is going on, and these courts are pseudo-corporate courts. The judges are traded on Dun and Bradstreet for profit, and that is a conflict of interest in every case. They are using your Social Security number to pay for their extortion racket.
Not only that, Dave, but Michelle did bring up a one valid point, too, is that go to your state or your bar. Ask them for a conflict of interest statement. They have them right from the state bar, and each state has it in their structure by the Secretary of State.
I asked two attorneys when I visited them to hire them. I wanted a conflict of interest statement, and both of them threw me out of their office.
Mm-hmm.
They will not give you a conflict of interest statement. So if you want to prove the fraud of the legal system, ask for a conflict of interest statement.
And that usually could get your case dismissed, too.
Yeah, Ed, the letter that I was reading, I'll forward it to you. I sent it to David on his computer. And what this was a courtesy notice, and it was on duly verified declaration of facts by legal president. And I'll read this paragraph. It says, a lawyer is a person who knows the law, Black's Law Dictionary, and other. It is said that all persons are presumed to know the law, meaning that ignorance of the law excuses no one. And then I cite a case law there. Therefore, all persons are presumed to be lawyers. By Christian principles and logic, the highest social law is the golden rule, quote, do unto others as you would prefer them to do unto you. Matthew 7:12, 22, 36, 40, Luke 36:31, and equity, Black Law Dictionary. Duly living of the golden rule is the highest practice of the law and is necessary for a stable society. Such practice of law cannot require a license and compels the conclusion that every man who professions and lives the golden rule is a lawyer.
Oh, great.
When a man is denied excuse me?
That's a great point, because this is where people are not getting, and of course, you know the way I talk about the word person and stuff. As you just stated, a person is declared a lawyer. And
right.
Lawyers, and by Black Law Dictionary and Bovier's, is a liar.
So here it goes on. Every man who professions and lives the golden rule is a lawyer, meaning we don't follow their under their same. In other words, we're a live being. We're not a lawyer as a person. When a man is denied assistance to counsel to protect his certain unalienable rights, endued by his Creator and secured by the Constitution, this weakens his position as a citizen, thus weakens the country as a whole. This is giving aid and comfort to the enemy, treason. These two civil rights laws mandate that we help others indeed by legal advice or otherwise help when we understand the law, to protect our certain unalienable rights endued by our Creator and secured by the Constitution. Thus, if anyone attempts to charge us with practicing law without a license, they are then violating our civil rights and may face federal criminal civil rights felony charges under 18 U.S.C. Section 241 and Section 242. Title 42 U.S.C. Section 1985 pertains to a conspiracy to interfere with civil rights. 1. To prevent an officer from performing a duty. 2. Obstruction justice, intimidating party, witness, or juror. 3. Or depriving persons of rights or privileges. Hang on, I'll go on and I'll read the next one, or next paragraph. Civil rights privileges. Title 42 U.S.C. Section 1985, action for negligence to prevent conspiracy. Every person who, having knowledge that any of the wrongs conspired to be done and mentioned in the preceding Section 42 U.S. Code Section 1985 are about to be committing and having power to prevent or aid in preventing the commission of the same, neglects or refuses to do so, if such wrongful act be committed, shall be liable to the party injured, or reasonable diligence could have prevented by our failure to take positive action. We shall be just as guilty as those taking from our freedoms away from us. All people of good will make mistakes, even public officials, but they will correct their mistakes and never take away our freedom. The First Amendment citizens lean against treason. Consequences of filing under 18 U.S.C. Section 4. Any judge, attorney, and or other court officer using the court system acting under the color of law who violates his/her required oath to support the Constitution for the United States of America is violating the soldier's oath to support and defend against all enemies, foreign and domestic, thus is committing rebellion and insurrection against the authority of the United States, which authority is the Constitution. Therefore, the judge, attorney, and or other court officers is committing treason. 5 U.S. Code, Section 3331, Oath of Office. An individual except the president elected or appointed to an office of honor or profit in the civil service or uniformed services shall take the following oath. Now, what I did is I pretended like I was taking the oath. As I, Michelle, do solemnly swear or affirm that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies. Oh, I just lost my page. Sorry about that. Hang on a minute. Enemies, foreign and domestic, that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same, that I take this obligation freely without any mental reservation of purpose of evasion, that I will and faithfully discharge the duties of the office on which I am to enter, so help me God. The second, the judicial of office, originated with the Judicial Act of 1789 and continues as a requirement under 28 U.S.C. Section 453, but was amended slightly in 1990. Now I'm going to pretend like I'm taking that oath. I, Michelle, do solemnly swear or affirm that I will administer justice without respect to persons and do equal rights to the poor and to the rich, and that I will faithfully and impartially discharge and perform all the duties incumbent upon me as Michelle under the Constitution and laws of the United States, so help me God. 18 U.S.C. Section 2382, Misprisonment of Treason. Whoever owing allegiance to the United States levies war against them or adhere to their enemies, giving them aid and comfort within the United States or elsewhere, is guilty of treason and shall suffer death or shall be imprisoned not less than 5 years and fined under this title but not less than 10,000 and shall be incapable of holding any office under the United States. That falls under our senators and our governors.
Well, that's the other point on that one. It comes down to our and governors and all this. People have to comprehend they work for the British government. They do not work for you. They're claiming to be a representative for you, but they're not representing for you because the only representation they have is for their own personal checkbook. They don't.
Well, Ed, keep in mind,
have to realize
they're supposed to be working for us, and they're supposed to be following the Constitution.
No, they're technically not supposed to be working for us because they're not supposed to have contact with us. That is the point. They're only supposed to have contact with
Whoa. Remember, that's where you're wrong because we appointed them. We voted them into office.
Michelle,
now, they are the corporate.
Argue with you on this. I've already proven it in court. We've already got a court case that just won on this one. They're not supposed to have contact with the lawful people of this country. The only people they're have a contact with is immigration and registered employees. And that's where the police department are supposed to be regulating and arresting elected and public servants, registered church members, and voters, and including all immigrants who violate the administrative rules. The police are supposed to be arresting and doing their job on that. I have that template almost finished with all their administrative rules, their own rules that they wrote that they're supposed to go by, that nobody's comprehending. And once we start speaking their rules and knowing how they're supposed to act, they're supposed to be sitting in the wing unless we summons them. And if we don't summons them, they don't have a right to come to your home if you're having a fight with your woman or not. That is the point. That's between you and the woman or the man and whatever. Because that's...
Whoa, come out here. You're talking about two different things here as to what I'm reading and what I'm...
Hang on a minute. Let me finish this, Michelle, because I want to get back to this point with the Registration Act, because I want to get into... We've got to start getting people filing this. We know this stuff. It's getting this...
What I was referring to was about the commercial liens.
We're not talking about commercial liens. We're talking tonight going out filing on the public servants to make sure they do their employment.
Well, that's right. And if the people that are addressing the court against the people that you're referring to, and if they don't know about the commercial lien, how that plays in court, then they're going to get gobbled up.
Yeah, we're going to be going through that because I'm going to be bringing Mike on the show who knows all about that stuff, and we're going to do that one night with Mike because he's done it, he knows it. Right. And so we're going to be bringing that in one night with his stuff. But the one thing is that I want you people to start reading this on the Foreign Agent Registration Act, comprehending what it means, because even in the Registration Act, it even says that your public servants are not supposed to have anything to do with you. Treasury Delegated Order 91, challenge to the judge, universal to all cases. And I've got this put in this stuff. And this is the point that people have to realize that commercial liens technically to be put on man and woman. Commercial liens cannot be put on any elected and public servants until you have a judge that says you won the case. Once you won the case, then you can file the commercial lien. It's good to have the commercial liens in place. Once you do get the judgment, then the commercial liens are mandatory to be paid at that point.
Right.
And let me get into this point. When you're talking about the conflict of interest, we're dealing with attorneys, the Bar Association. 22 U.S.C. 611. All right, all judges are lawfully required to register. If they don't register, by their oath of office of 28 U.S.C. 372, of their oath of office, they are unemployable. That means they committed 100% treason, an act of criminal offense. That is not a misdemeanor. That is a beheading offense. If you go back to treason, even in this country, when this country was founded 257 years ago, when it was founded, treason was a beheading offense. So you didn't have a chance to go to court and do a democracy point of view, because this is a Republican form of government, republic form of government. We are not a democracy. Democracy is a devil's word of a Bible that says, oh, we're going to pray, we're going to do all this, and we're going to have these things. We have a constitution put in place, folks, that clearly states, here's the regulations and the laws of this country called the Constitution. This is what we go by. If you cause no injury, no property damage, you have no worries, you have no say, you have no hassle, you have no problems. And that is the one thing that you have to comprehend that point. You can't go by, oh, my feelings got hurt or my feelers got hurt. Because we've become, that's why I say, everybody, you got to watch that movie called Interstate 60. It explains the court systems. Because everybody goes, oh, we have a right to sue, we have a right to sue. That is the point. The only ones that can technically sue in a court are only elected and public servants, registered church members, registered voters, and immigration against each other. They cannot even take lawful Americans even to court. Because these court systems are not for us. When it comes down to it, we're not supposed to be involved unless we go to court in an Article 3 court that we have our rights intact. Otherwise, we're not supposed to be using these courts. And this is the thing that when we're filing these instruments and we're starting to get these things that are starting to move in court, you know, and I want to bring this one up. 22 CFR 92, Public Law, .12-92.31. This is dealing with the required oath that every elected public servant, registered church member who's in that part of the government, in any contractor. So if you're a janitor company or a gas company and you have a contract with with We the People, remember, We the People are the government, you have to register. That's even by the Foreign Administration Registration Act. It clearly states this stuff. And it doesn't give people leeway. It gets it so we know who's in our country, we know who's lawful, we know who's legal, and we know how we're supposed to do it. But we've been so confused and misguided by so much confusion out there. Because, like I said, I've been on several talk shows the last couple of weeks, and all these people want to talk about their religion and how God is going to save this and God's going to save that. And it's like, you know, Dave said many times, how's God working for you? Right, Dave? You there, Dave?
I'm here.
Okay. Well, isn't that one of the things you say, too, is how God is working for you?
Say that again, Ed.
I said, am I saying, haven't you said many times, and you've said this before, how's God working for you?
Well, I've mentioned that, yes.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. But see, if you believe in God, you have to file your rights on it. And that is the point. USC.
If you claim government has harmed you, you've got to file on it.
That's right. Personally.
You've got to file and notice them 3 times before you can sue them.
That's correct. You cannot do it to an attorney. You can do it yourself.
You cannot say, oh, well, I got my feelings hurt, and notify them 3 times, and that's a court case. No. You have to state a claim against them.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like the state of Illinois now wanting to go to Sharia law, and I think California's wanting to do it. We've got to remember, people, that this Constitution and treaties written are the supreme law of the land. You go Sharia law, you just committed treason.
Yep. Illinois is doing the same thing. They actually got a committee that's advising the House and Senate on Sharia law there.
They need to be criminally charged by the Department of Justice with treason, and I mean immediately.
Mm-hmm. And let me give you the OMB number for the Foreign Registration Act. So you got the OMB number, so you could actually file the OMB number on their circumstances. It's 1124-0005. And this does not expire until May 31st, 2020. This is off of their personal website. They have to be registered. And if they're not...
Say that again, Ed.
Huh?
Say that again.
Oh, they have to be registered by law, and that's even by their own structure, and the OMB number is 1124-0005. It's off their own website, and it doesn't expire until May 31st, 2020. So we don't know if that expiration date is when the Department of Justice might end up being folded up, or if they're going to have to renew it, but they're going to have to renew that with Congress to still do business. Because when they have an OMB number, they have to register it with Congress, and Congress gives them the authority to do business.
Well, the people actually give them the authority to do business because we are the supreme law.
That's right.
We have the right to redress a grievance. We have the right to alter and abolish any law that becomes destructive
Mm-hmm.
to the Constitution. Read the Constitution. People don't read it. They don't know it. They don't comprehend it.
Well, they get taught in school that it doesn't apply to them. And that's why. Go ahead, Dave.
Bullshit.
Oh, I know that.
And then, well, this thing of being ignorant in law, I want to touch base on that. Because you made a statement that you are assumed to know the law if you claim such and such.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Unless you have studied law, you are not educated in law. Therefore, ignorance of law only pertains to those who are graduate students in law, not you, because in your high school, how many of you took a course in law? Or courses in law, or a college course in law, any law?
Well, and that's the one thing I'm sorry
for you to walk into court and any judge say to you, you're ignorant in law, you say, you're damn right I am.
That's right. That's why I support Trump when he came out and going against that one and bringing that up. Now I want to read this other passage so people comprehend this one. And I've been putting this in all the court cases I've been doing here lately. I am not a United States citizen or a citizen. Because you use the word citizen, I'll read this. I am not a resident or an inhabitant of a franchise, non-commercial of the subject of word of, the property of, the chattel of, subject of jurisdiction of any monarch or any corporation. And it's knowing the words you use, commonwealth. And everybody says, oh, commonwealth. Commonwealth is federal, state, territory, county, and council, and city, municipality, body, political government. So I don't believe in commonwealth, because if you say you're commonwealth, that means you go by whatever the public servants say, because they say they own you and your assets. And it's very clear. And I've been putting this out in the newsletter that I've been putting out too for the show, so people could read this. And also, too, you are not an employee, officer, agent. They're derive their authority therefrom, nor do any of their statutes, regulation of such authority apply to me or have any jurisdiction over me. And this is where you have to comprehend, folks, and put the stuff in and know the court system. That's why I tell people when you go to court. You know, I started getting couple of these other people started filing out of their court system to another court, and the judge is like, well, you can't do that. I'm going to stop it. And so I just told them, and they said, well, the judge said this, and I said, well, are you going to file it or not? If you file it, then see what happens. Well, one guy filed his case in federal court, and all of a sudden, when it went to go get he got a number, and they were getting ready to go for it, and all of a sudden, the case disappeared out of the state court. Never heard of them. So when you start filing these things like this, we're waking ourselves up, we're waking up others, we're reading this stuff, we're comprehending it, and this is the way we've got to win it by their rules. They wrote it, we lawful bloodline Americans quote the Constitution, so we have rights, not privileges.
Oh, okay.
You know, and this is the one thing that, you know, if you are saying you're a citizen or if you're putting signature, and I suggest, I can't tell anybody what to do because you're an adult. I suggest that when it says signature on it, I always cross out signature in red ink and put not available, not applicable, but it's actually not available. I write autograph and then I autograph it. All rights reserved. I-207, I-308. And it's up to you to start doing this. So when you start doing this, you start seeing their attitudes change.
If you go without recourse, all rights reserved is the same thing as 207, 208.
308, yeah, but I know what you mean. But I like putting it in there. I just want to make sure it's there just for any sake of argument that they could try to wiggle out. If that makes logical sense. You want to make sure that you try not to give them any wiggle room.
Well, it was a court ruling, Ed, that if you use without recourse all rights reserved, it's the same.
No, I know it's a court ruling, but when you put it in, you have to write that court ruling in it then, if you don't have the court ruling with you. That's why I suggest that. Because I agree with you. When you got the court ruling, you write the court ruling in it, because I do that in some of my instruments too. I'll write the court case right into it, and I put reference to the court case. But we agree on that one, Dave. But if people don't have it, I'm just throwing something out there to confirm it, and we need to make sure that's
what you're saying.
Right. And then also too, I want to make sure everybody comprehends this. This is before the Civil War happened. They passed this in Congress in 1840. Every state must conform in the first place to the Constitution of the United States. This is before the 1871 Constitution that we have with the British government and the Vatican.
All right, that brings up another question.
Go ahead, Dave.
If we have an amendment to the Constitution of our state, does it not have to be ratified by all the other states?
Well, technically, it's supposed to be ratified by the people.
Well, it's ratified by the people, but I'm saying each state must ratify the amendment because they're making it part of the Constitution.
Right, but this was all done. This was the void of the court case of Houston versus Moore, 18 U.S. 1.5 LED 19/1840. So this went through the Supreme Court, where they made sure that was done through the Supreme Court, that says each state has to do that. So when it comes down to our rights to travel, each state has to give the right to travel. Like the state of Oregon, we have proven that it even says by their own administrative rules that you don't need a driver's license, you don't need registration. I went in to deregulate myself again from DMV a couple weeks ago because I got the forms, and it says to give up my my driving privileges. And when I went into DMV and I was talking to the lady, and she goes, "Well, you haven't had a driver's license in so long." And I said, "Well, that's true." She goes, "But you don't need to file this now. That's only when you have one to deregulate yourself. You're already deregulated." And I said, "Then why the hell am I still in the computer?"
Well, that's a good point.
Yeah, it's like I'm not supposed to be here if that is. Then if I'm in the computer, how come I'm not flagged if something happens if my name is brought up?
Mm-hmm. Well, why was I, when I was stopped by the New Mexico Police Department or patrol, I came back and I wasn't in their system.
Mm-hmm. Valid point. Yeah,
they asked me for a driver's license, and I handed you the 18-page document and said, "Here, you need to fill this out."
Mm-hmm. Well, Dave, also, too, tell everybody how you did your registration. And I mean registration because he did register his rights when it comes down to that. But tell them how you did that and what you did it and how you did yours when you publicized it.
Well, actually, I got on Facebook to the various states, and I signed up to travel.
Mm-hmm.
Made a public notice to them. And once that document hit them, and that document, you got to remember, people, that document that I have also tells them that I have a right to kill an officer for false arrest.
For threatening your life, because he's coming up to you with an arm on his side, or a weapon, call it.
And you have a right to protect yourself from false arrest. It's something that involves manslaughter.
Mm-hmm. And that's your right, not privilege.
When police officers read that, they do not want to mess around too long with me. I tell them, I'm right up front. I said, "Sir, if you're planning on detaining me, my fee's $100,000 an hour with a minimum of 4 hours. And if you're planning on writing me a ticket, I want you to give me directions to your treasurer's office of the state because I want to go cash that in."
Because they're actually writing you a check.
Yes. And I'll be right back. He went back and called in, and evidently informed them that this guy knows more about the law than 99% of the people I ever talked to, and we could be in deep trouble here. What do you want me to do? And he can back through our system. Have a nice day.
Mm-hmm.
And that's basically how I handled it.
And it's not being rude.
He's on here or not tonight. Carol, do you want him?
You know, it's just not being rude. He explained the truth to the public servant. So he wasn't rude to him, and he just told him point blank, this is the way it is. And that's the point that we've got to start using our manners, and we use their paperwork and their structure against them.
I got his name on the document. But since he didn't detain me, and he didn't issue me a ticket, I didn't follow him.
Not much you could do at that point because he walked.
That's right. He walked away.
And that's how we need to start handling this, folks, with each other on these things. Let them make a rational decision, because then you get to let them know, too. I mean, I know I can sue you for your personal assets and stuff, and I'm not trying to be rude, but I'm not out here to be taking advantage and have road piracy taken on me.
Well, he read about the first 2 pages of that document and handed it back to me and said, I'll be right back. He went back to his car and made a call and then said, well, you're not in my system. I need an address so that the judge can send you a ticket. I said, I'm sorry, I don't have my address with me. Have a nice day.
Yeah, he was trying to bring you in another way, and it didn't work.
That's right. Yeah, he wanted the judge to issue the ticket. I'm going, nope, I ain't buying that one. The judge is a hearsay witness. Not allowed in court.
That's right.
The judge, not being present, be a witness. It's all hearsay information.
Hmm. And that's what they go after you on hearsay.
Mm-hmm.
They expect you to agree to their term.
No, I don't ever agree with the terms. I get very, very, very discussionary, shall we say, when it comes to their terms. Remember, everything they do, the contract, they're not advertising it as a contract. An agreement, is it not? Oh, sign on the dotted line. That becomes a contract. Was full disclosure under Uverum Mephites, ultimate truth in contract law, ever presented in that contract agreement? Absolutely not.
And not only that, the public servant, the peace officer, police officer, cop, whatever you want to call them, tax revenue agent, has no say when it comes down to these things. And that's the point that you've got. Go ahead, Dave.
I'm just saying that was correct statement. Go ahead.
Yeah, and the whole point is standing up for yourself. And I know sometimes it gets scary to stand up for oneself. We all been there at one time or another. And that's the point of learning how to start standing up for oneself instead of putting oneself in another position of entering into their contract, because they're going by Article 1, Section 10 of the Constitution called the contract law. And remember, what is that? And everybody keeps going, oh, I want to be part of international contracts and international law. No, you don't want to be part of international laws and contracts.
What's the First Amendment say, Ed?
Go ahead.
No, I ask you. What does the First Amendment say?
Well, I shall not enter anything, and I have the right to free speech. I have the right to my own religion, and a cop is trying to put you in his religion belief.
With Hale versus Ankle.
Mm-hmm.
I have a right to conduct my own business in my own way without government interference.
That's right.
A complaint is a First Amendment right.
And if you don't file it and write it up, nobody's going to do it for you.
You can't do it for you. You have to do it for yourself. And that's what people don't comprehend. They think that we're fighting the war again, and it's, I'm sorry, that war was won. You don't need to fight that thing again. Read the preamble of the Constitution, and the Constitution, if you've never done it, read them. What, people, are you too lazy to spend an hour a day to read a document? An instrument, I should call it. It's pretty land. Read it. You don't know.
Off your TV. Didn't mean to catch you up on that one day, but it's like, turn off your TV.
Turn the ball game off for a game. You know, the game ain't over until the last inning.
Well, nothing else makes. Sorry, go ahead.
All that time in between to study. Turn it on for the last quarter. That's when it's won or lost.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to see every player, every shot. You know? You only need the last quarter. Spend some time in the law, study it.
Mm-hmm.
Read the oath of office that these nitwits have to take, who think that they don't have to obey it once they take. Oh, I did, blah, 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 blah. We the people are the government. There is no ifs, no ands, no buts. It says
right.
so. We the people, we the men and women of this nation are the government. End of story. There's no amendment stating that, we the people bow down to our elected and public servants, to them to be the government. That's a bunch of horse hockey.
Mm-hmm. And
you don't know it if you don't read it. And that's called the Constitution for the United States of America. And the first branch of government is we the people. Now, once you comprehend that, you're on the right track. Anybody that tells you different is a traitor. He's what they call a homegrown terrorist.
That's where it says that we, the lawful Americans, are supposed to protect our country. Who else do you think to do it?
Article 5 of the U.S. Constitution is your bloodline. Know it, follow it, understand it, comprehend it.
Yeah, that's right. Say it again, Dave. It actually says it in the Constitution about bloodline. That's what they do with the 14th Amendment, where people just want to argue that point.
Article 2.5 of the U.S. Constitution, it falls under the qualifications for the President of the United States. That's where your bloodline is established. If you don't comprehend it, then you better read it until you do.
And immigration don't have rights, they have privileges.
That's right. Foreigners do not have rights in this country, period.
They don't have a right to travel. They don't have a right to food stamps. They don't have a right to free stuff.
That's why when President Obama gave all those foreign immigrants $25,000 That is misuse and misappropriation of public funds.
Mm-hmm. And those public funds are collected by the IRS that are supposed to pay off lawful bloodline Americans' water, electricity bill. We're supposed to be signing these things off with an autograph, not paying these bills. That's the Bankruptcy Act when you read it.
That's right, public law. Why do you need to steal, Ed? That was another point I was going to bring up. Why are these people stealing any place? You go HJR 192, read it. Get the public laws. Obamacare is totally unnecessary because that's insurance fraud under HJR 192. We're supposed to be able to write these bills off.
Not only that, until 1973, and it didn't go into effect until 1978, hospitals were not allowed to make a profit or income. That's the one thing people don't read. They don't comprehend this stuff, and then they want to argue, and they think that they have these rights.
And therefore, you need a qualified endorsement on the back of every check you write. HJR 192, this instrument is null and void if it is not returned to the originator.
Mm-hmm.
You made an offer to pay. When they put their name under the qualified endorsement, they agreed to the check and the qualification. You put on the front of your check, pay to the order, just above that, all rights reserved on your check. Scares the crap out of them. Banks don't want to honor this HJR 192. I just very plain and simply asked the bank tellers, oh, you don't honor public law? Gee, I think I'll contact the Federal Trade Commission. Maybe I'll contact the Secretary of State and pull your bond.
Mm-hmm.
Changes their mind in a hurry.
That's a fact. It sure does change their mind, and they squirm.
If you, as a corporation, bank, okay, who's not allowed to own land or anything else, or refusing, that's called restraint of trade, by the way, because that check is a instrument, a trade instrument. Gee. That goes to the Federal Trade Commission. You can file criminal charges through them.
And that's what we're...
read HJR 192 and the public laws associated. We've discussed it on the show before. It's on our web pages. You got the public laws there. Look them up. Confront your bank. Say, hey, you guys are supposed to discharge this debt. It don't come out of my account. Trust me, that's how I got $7,000 richer.
Yeah. Yeah. Dave and I will be working on a stamp to put up on the site so people get a stamp that you can put on your check. We'll work on that one because I need to do that on mine too.
I actually have a form that I put on my computer, made one up that I print it right on my check. I don't stamp it, I print it right on there.
Well, you got the ability to do that on your computer to make your check. I don't.
Actually,
but at least I haven't got to that advancement yet.
If I can do it, you can do it.
Well, I just said I haven't got to that advancement yet.
Use onion paper, Ed.
What kind of paper?
Onion paper. No, it's a transparent paper, and all you have to do is print it out on your print on your check.
That's a good idea. We'll have to do something to walk through that one.
Banks do not like you putting HGA 192 on the check because that brings them back under the bankruptcy laws and the public laws associated, and they know good and well they got to honor it.
Hmm. And if they don't, they lose their banking license.
Exactly.
A license to privilege to do business.
And I am going to go after commercial banks for failing to honor that. I got a copy of the check, but they refused to cash. And I will go after their oath.
Yep.
Under a criminal complaint under fraud.
Hmm.
So, I am finding out that executive officers of corporations squirm when you hand them the truth.
Well, Dave, I want to bring up another point that you brought up a good deal, because anybody who has a corporation, an LLC, or something like that, you brought up a good point. We were talking one day. Well, isn't the president of that corporation supposed to honor the Constitution because he's a president?
Most of it. He has to honor. A corporation is made up of law and statute. Well, that means the supreme law of the United States, the Constitution, applies to him, doesn't it?
Right.
There you go.
Yeah, it's one of those things that people do not get on this one.
Mm-hmm.
So,
it doesn't matter to me what that president says. If he violates the Constitution in anything he's writing to me, I can fry his butt.
mm-hmm.
Same with the IRS.
That
you violate code statute, rulings of the Supreme Court because you're ignorant in law, even though I've told you about it. A notice of dishonor, ignored, and you keep sending me bullshit letters. I'm going to respond to those letters, and then I'm going to kick your ass.
Mm-hmm. That is the point that has to be brought forward, folks.
And herein is how you harm me, asshole. And I don't mind calling the IRS assholes because they're not a U.S. government entity. They're a division of the International Monetary Fund through the United Nations. And they are not my government.
That is true. That's part of the contract that we have with them called the 1871 British Vatican Contract.
Again, treason against the Constitution because you're dealing with the British.
Mm-hmm. And that is the point. Go ahead, Dave.
Anything our Congress does in relationship to the British is high treason. End of story. Anything our courts do involving British. Oh, gee, would that be the British registration, accreditation registry? That all judges, lawyers, and attorneys take an oath to? And of course, conflict of interest as they are barristers for the crown, tax collectors for the crown. Why are they tax collectors for the crown? Why aren't they tax collectors for the United States of America?
Well, for a nation to join
And that's the point. We're not supposed to have nothing to do with the British. Why are we sitting there allowing them to still control our families, still controlling our homes?
Yeah, why are we allowing the Vatican and their canon law and all the other bullshit?
Or any religion.
That's right.
That's why we're supposed to be free from religion. You have a right.
We have a right to freedom of
Go ahead.
religion, and we have a right to freedom from religion.
Hmm.
So with that, somewhere in there's got to be a conflict.
We're on the same path with that one, and how do we stop it? File it.
Right. Here's how you harm me. You notify them 3 times, you can sue their back. Here's how you harm me. Here's my claim. Make sure you state it as a claim, or they'll throw it right out of court.
Oh, don't forget, you always got to put corpus delicti 3771 in it.
Oh, most definitely. I am the injured party, the corpus delicti, 18 U.S.C. 3771.
And if you don't put it in, you're not allowed. You're not able to collect for damages. The courts pulled that for their own loophole out of it.
Clerks of the court try to remove anything to do with your right as a private attorney general to represent yourself. And those rulings come from the Kennedy assassination because of all the lawsuits that followed. That your right to be a private attorney general and represent yourself and recover costs as though you were the attorney. Again, they don't want you to know. Just like HDR 192. What Congress wrote it, we quote it, but yet they never bothered to, as the fiduciary trustee of the bankruptcy, they never bothered to tell us that we had the right to write off our bills under HDR 192 and all public laws they created. Intentional fraud, the deliberate withholding of information to cause one to act for his detriment. And we have been screwed since 1933.
Well, really, it's 1940 when the Administration Act went through.
Yeah, but it all started in 32.
Oh, yeah, no, that's true. It started before that. It started with Woodrow Wilson.
Well, yeah, you're right.
When Woodrow Wilson signed the Banking Act.
Yeah, the private bill. That's Jekyll Island, not the halls of Congress. So the private banking bill, people study that one. We know the Bankruptcy Act was a fraud because, what is it, page 400, Congressional Record, December 13, 1932.
32, we have it. It's on our website.
People need to educate themselves. Know how swindle started, and then it's up to you to put an end to it. Actually, it's up to the actual government of this nation to put an end to it.
And when he's talking about the government, that's you people. We are the government. It's our responsibility.
It's not up to our elected and public servants to end it. It's up to us to end it. Lawful bloodline American. And I, once again, have put in a request to the Department of Management and Budget a single OMB number to where we, the people, can write our elected and public servants under official documentation. And they refuse to do it, which is an act of treason. So the advantage of budget, they better get off their dead ass and assign we the people an OMB number if they know what's good for them.
That's right.
Because I am going to notify them certified mail 3 times before I sue their ass.
But people don't know you have to listen.
And you have them plenty of warning and plenty of notice, and this is where, folks, you've got to comprehend how to use the system. It was put in place for us to use. They had to put it in place for our protection.
We have to withdraw from the contract, Edward.
Yep.
Oh, and by the way, I want to put a warning out for all you people who are involved with Jay Sidlow and his organization that Mr. Sidlow believes in the democracy. So therefore, I will no longer support him financially. And as far as I'm concerned, by his statement to that effect on his recorded message, he's just committed treason against the Constitution.
Mm-hmm. That is a fact.
So, Mr. Sidlow, I would suggest you change your attitude to this republic.
Right. And that's what has to be said. That's what has to be brought out. And it's our responsibility. Because if we don't do it, what are you going to do? Who else do you think is going to do this for us?
Right, and I would still like to know why the Department of Justice has not charged the Democratic Party with high treason.
Because they're part of the bullshit.
Well, and the other point is I get tired of the racism because who's the one that formed the KKK? Wasn't that the Democratic Party?
I do believe you're correct.
Yeah, don't people know that? And you're supporting these people doing this stuff? I'm a Democrat.
Why would anybody want to be a Democrat?
Yes, Democrat. You give up your rights.
I wonder what that platform actually reads. I asked for a copy of it once and I never got it. Look, the Democratic Party, please send me a copy of your platform.
Mm-hmm.
Gee, I never got it. I wonder why. Could it be there's incriminating evidence in it?
Yeah, I think there probably is a deal of incriminating evidence.
#61 to get into the Q&A lineup.
Now people are becoming more aware, and they're not able to bring their case like they want to.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
Now the other thing I did was I filed a complaint with the inspector generals on them. I sent in all my paperwork, and they're investigating the case. So I'm trying to wait and see where that's going to lead. I did a whistleblower.
I'll bring out the fact that when you were in court, did they have gold fringe flags flying?
I don't remember. I really don't.
You can go back into that courtroom and find that gold fringe flag and take a picture of it.
Okay.
You can file that as evidence of color of law fraud.
Okay, I'll do that. I'll make a trip just to do that.
Yeah, any flag.
Not like that. That falls under Dwight David Eisenhower's Executive Order 10834.
Okay.
And it's that becomes a military court the minute you walk into that gold fringe flag.
Okay, I'll make sure I go back and check.
That means now you can question the jurisdiction of the court, and the judge has to prove he has it.
Well, the FARA, as far as I was concerned, proved that they didn't have it because they're foreign agents.
That's right. So you got them on 2 counts.
Right. So, this is the reason why I believe that they weren't granted the summary judgment. And the other thing I did was I put the judge's oath on the case, and I ordered her registration statement. So that tells where her finances are coming from. So, of course, she wanted to get the heck out of that.
Well, yeah, she didn't want to lose her retirement pension on it.
Hello? So that's why she didn't grant summary judgment. And so that's now. So I'm going to see where they come. But I really don't think they're going to come back at me because I think that somebody enlightened them about this investigation with the IGs.
Ooh.
So it'll be interesting to see where this all leads to.
Well, yeah, but they've got a valid point. Walk through that courthouse and take pictures of every gold fringe flag in it
Okay.
Okay, get a picture of them all. That way you can sit there, if it's flagging in one room or another room or any part of that building, they're claiming that that building is a British agency on our land.
Okay, I will definitely do that this week.
And that is high treason against the Constitution.
Okay, thanks for that info. I will most definitely do that. But it's good to hear you guys' voice again. I've been following Ed on Facebook, and Dave, you just let me get on your page
because I had a stroke.
Yeah, and tell Michelle I sent her one too if she want to add me onto her page. I got some good information off of her page as well. So I just want to thank you guys. You all are doing a great job. And speaking of Illinois, I am in Illinois, and if there's any information you can send me, because we have a big problem here filing down at the courthouse. We have to go to a whole other county to file our paperwork. So if you could do that template you were talking about, I know many, many people here who would definitely use it.
Yeah, I will have that finished. I was trying to have it actually finished up tonight, but I had other things that I did some research on that I found that I am going to end up making it probably a few more pages longer than I originally thought because I want to make sure that there's no stone that can be overturned in it.
Okay, well, look, don't pressure. I'm not trying to put any pressure on you, but whenever you get it done, I would very much appreciate it if you could put it on your site so we Illinoisans can get busy because there is so much fraud here in Illinois. It is unbelievable. As you all know, we've had at least 3 or 4 governors that's gone to prison, so the fraud runs deep here.
Yep.
And it's sad when you live in one county and you have to go to another county to file paperwork because they won't allow us to file things.
Yeah, that's ridiculous. Go ahead, Dave. You were speaking. Go ahead, Dave.
I was going to say every legislator or every governor or office holder who supports Sharia law has just committed high treason against the Constitution, and they can be criminally charged. Okay, well, we're waiting for that paperwork. We aren't afraid to use it, and we're waiting to use. So whenever you can get it up, we would greatly appreciate it.
No, I'm working on it because I'm going to be serving my governor in it because my governor is from Spain, not even born in this soil. So I want her to go for treason. Not only that, she's still a bar-carrying licensed attorney, and I've got the information from Congress that says the 13th Amendment was 100% ratified twice.
Wow.
And that was before the Civil War.
Plus, you and I have it in the Constitution where titles of nobility are what, Ed?
Yeah. That's why
it
people
wasn't just in the 13th Amendment. It was in other amendments to the Constitution.
That's right. And people don't get it.
Term limits were established by the Constitution.
Mm-hmm.
So when Congress and elected and public servants say, they can run for, what is that, career politicians, no, they can't because they're in treason against the Constitution because the Constitution established the term limit. People don't know that one either because they don't read the Constitution.
Oh, I got to ask you to cut the chase, Dave. When you get back online, send me the term limit deal, too, of 1778 so I can put it into the fair structure in this letter.
Well, you remember when we did the thing on the Civil War, Ed?
Yes.
It was in there.
I know. I'm trying to do it. I've only got, since that time, I've got 1,000 other structures in my writings that I haven't had a chance to go back, and I'm reformatting some of that so I get it posted and done.
Yeah, and you remember
Article 1, Section 10, Title of Nobility.
Well, you remember that little incident I had with Microsoft, supposed employees, where I went to their website to claim money, and it wiped my hard drive?
Yeah.
My documentation was lost unless I saved it prior to.
Got it.
So you may have to go back through your emails and find it.
Okay, that's going to be a lot of emails.
Yeah, just Google me, my name. It'll come up sooner or later. I thought we posted that to our website.
I thought we did, but I'll have to double check on that.
Okay.
Because I thought I did send that up to be put on the website at one point, but I have to double check that before I put my foot in my mouth.
I mean, I notified the governor of the state of Ohio on his website of the term limits established by the Constitution, and that people who have already taken an oath of office click off.
Hmm?
I never got a response from him, but it doesn't mean he wasn't notified, as Facebook is public notice. My goodness.
That's a proven fact. The Supreme Court even Facebook was public record.
So, but anyway, we can do some stuff. But I appreciate this caller and her willingness to participate in eliminating the fraud scheme.
Oh, you know what? I'm doing everything I can to do my part. So if we all just do a little something, it all helps. You know, we're not. No man is on an island. We have to pull together and work together to get this thing resolved.
I love this girl.
No, and that
Michelle wants to have a word with this gal. Hold on.
I'm glad to hear that you're challenging the court. It's good to hear somebody that's been there and done it also. Just so you know,
you gave me information before on the identity theft thing. So,
I thought I did, and I've given so much information out to different ones. I don't remember who, who got what and who took what. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
and then
when
you address the court, the number one thing is their jurisdiction, okay? Because you're challenging the jurisdiction,
right,
when it comes to the court. And just so you know, your First Amendment right of the people peacefully assembled, okay, is and to petition the government for a readdress of grievances is the criminal complaint, the Constitution criminal complaint. This is what they don't want you to know, and that's why they don't like it when we file a criminal complaint, because that's our First Amendment right as we the people.
Okay, I got
And, hang on. Go ahead, Dave.
Tell her that when we go to court, the first thing that we enter is our criminal.
Okay. So, but anyhow, the one thing is, I'm glad that you comprehended what I sent you. I'm glad that you decided to take the stance, and that's the point that we're trying to get people to comprehend, is that, with the research we're doing, everybody wants to whine, cry, fight, and do all this other stuff. And it's like, we're reading the solutions. They wrote it. They wrote it. We're quoting their constitutional structure that they have to write it by that statute with the contract with the British government, including the contract of 1871. We could go to the Paris Treaty. We go through World War I with the war, World War I, World War II with that, the ceasefire of that with the contracts. But people don't read these contracts. They don't read what's been transpired in these circumstances of what, why, and how. It's like I was on, these guys want to argue with me over the weekend about the 14th Amendment and how everybody has a right in this country and all this stuff. The Constitution is for the bloodline. It's not for the world. The Constitution of the 48 states is not a world constitution. That's where people don't get it. It's not for England or anything. We have a treaty with England that they have a right to have privilege of employment, or we were going to kill them. And so that was part of the Civil War agreement and treaties when you read the structure of the Civil War. And then I argued with this a couple weeks ago in another talk show dealing with Abraham Lincoln. Well, he was an attorney. Yes, he was an attorney. He knew his violation of the 13th Amendment. But also, too, he knew that he took an honorable oath to the Constitution, and that superseded the Vatican's Constitution that he took to the bar. and he knew that to protect the country. And people want to slander him, they don't comprehend that man gave his life up for the truth to say what we have today and our rights, what you're going through right now with your winning of, basically you're winning on this case, because if it goes to that, they have to take you in front of a Supreme Court, of a federal court. They cannot take you to a local court. They have to take it to the Supreme Court because you filed the Fair Act. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
So, and this is the point that I'm trying to get people to comprehend these things when you do filing this stuff, how it goes, what it has to do, how things go on, and that's the point. Once we start getting these little knocked and doors opening, you know, it's not yelling and sitting there swearing at these people, and they could have everybody else yelling and swearing in their buildings. So long as we're not getting arrested or kidnapped and held for ransom, not being harassed, you know, and when you go in the building, all they do is they want to get you in as quick as possible, just file your paperwork and get out. Remember, they're not your friends. They don't want to be friends with you, and if you got people in that building trying to be friends, they're out for something. They're not there. They're trying to do a loophole to cover their ass for their funding.
Now, let me ask you a question. A friend of mine told me that he recently received an email from someone saying that all the attorneys had to file fair registration by September 1st of this year, but I haven't seen or read anything regarding that. Do you know anything about that?
Yes, that came from, I don't know, when Comey got fired from President Trump.
Okay, that's where that came from?
Yes.
Okay.
From Congress. They're actually having Senate hearings right now, today, right now this week on it, because people have gone by, they didn't know it, they've ignored it for years. The democracy. Oh, we're a democracy. We're a democracy. That was put in place with the Republican to protect our country.
Okay.
We're not a democracy. We're a republic. We have a right. The Constitution.
Absolutely. Right. So now what happens if they start filing these registration statements?
Oh, it's a half deal. It just says that they're able to do business, and if they violate the Constitution, they go to prison.
Okay, I got you.
That means if they're representing a man or a woman going into court, and if they don't represent them correctly, they go to prison.
Okay, wow, that's great.
So that's the whole point. You're allowed to have counsel, okay, but the point is that counsel means anyone that knows the law or the circumstances one is going through. See, and that's the point. Once you comprehend that, I mean, I just filed that, and I got to refinish that another letter tonight I'm doing, because this guy's going to court. You know, they trying to change his court date again, and I'm filing all that with the registration in his court case. I already did that. Now I'm going to refile the other paperwork with that, including to the governor's office tonight.
Okay.
So, like I said, I'm trying to get, you know, you're getting things moving. I'm doing this. I got other people finally getting it moving, and so when we get this, when we start getting it where it's comprehensible, where people start going, "Hey, that's reality. That makes sense," instead of saying, "Oh, well, our borders are open and free." That's like, what is that? The Dred Scott case. You know what I'm talking about?
I do.
All right. Now, did you know that Huckabee just came out and said the Dred Scott case is alive and well, and if you're claiming to be a American citizen, you're an enemy to the country?
Yes.
Okay. So people are comprehending this stuff. They are getting this out, because I know me and Dave, we served Congress on all this stuff. We served the Supreme Court on this stuff. So, you know, we know they're reading it. I know they're reading it because I'm getting interesting response on different things that I've been doing.
Well, that's good to know. I mean, because you know what, we're all doing. Well, I'm in a group here, and we're all doing our part. You know, so it's good to know that this stuff is actually working. Because you know, here in Illinois, they ignore you or they return it to you. But we don't care if they return it because we know that they received it, because we're sending it registered mail or certified mail. So as long as we prove that they received it, you know, they received it.
No, that's a fact, and that's the point. the Dred and Scott case, and if people actually read it, and this is what the whole thing, it had nothing to do with color. It said anybody who claims to be an American citizen. That's any color. And that's where people don't get it. Because they had to do that because of the Immigration Act of 1774. They had to comply with that as well as to comply with, what the hell is the other, well, I had to comply. Go ahead, Dave. Were you saying something?
Well, Michelle's brought out a couple of points tonight that our listener can use in her case, and that's regarding rebellion or insurrection under 18 U.S.C. at 2383. Whoever incites, sets on foot, assists, engages in any rebellion or insurrection against the authority of the United States or its laws thereof, or gives aid and comfort thereto, shall be fined under this title or imprisoned not more than 10 years or both, and shall be incapable of holding any public office of the United States.
And once you get even a violation like that, you cannot have employment in any part of the public system after that.
Right.
Wow, that's good to know.
Criminal complaint process we utilize is the citizen's First Amendment right of the people to peacefully
man and woman, not citizen,
and petition the government for redress of grievance. The judges and the prosecutors of any court system cannot lawfully attack our liens against treason.
Okay, now I have a question. Ed, you mentioned House Joint Resolution 192 earlier.
Right.
And I actually did follow that and sent them payment under that law, and they sent me payment letters and things saying that it was paid. And then later on, they took me to court saying it wasn't paid. So the bank was...
If you have the documentation that says it is paid.
Yeah, I have the documentation. And I've actually presented that documentation in court, but they've told me they've ignored it.
Hang on, let Dave. What are you saying? Go ahead, Dave.
That's on the court. So
okay, and that's part of the package.
Happy girl, hang on a minute. Let Dave finish what he's saying. We already know what you're going to say, but let him finish what he's saying. He's got a point here. Go ahead, Dave.
Okay, go ahead, Dave.
Notify the court, notice of error. Okay.
Okay.
That is a law, statute, codification, a public, let's see, it goes under public law, and the court is obligated to obey the law.
Okay. Now let me say
they cannot deny you payment.
Now let me say this.
If they deny you payment, then it's paid.
Okay. Now let me say this to you. Now when the attorney for the mortgage company said, well, we just give her a summary judgment because we've had 3 extensions, blah 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 blah. He said, and we're also checking into a letter stating that it was paid. So they used that as a pretense to not get the summary judgment. So they know that it was paid. So I don't know why.
Are you the plaintiff in the case?
No, I'm the defendant in the case. The attorneys.
I got to bring something to your attention that's real crucial because this is where a lot of us have made mistakes, including me. You do not have to show cause as you being the defendant. What they are doing with you is they're making you show the cause to their plaintiff as them being the plaintiff. In other words, they want you to show the evidence in court. So they're forcing the hand. They're forcing you to show cause in court as to what they're bringing against you. You need to put it right now. So what you do is you object. You object to the order of showing cause from that plaintiff. Okay?
Okay.
And you have to object to the judge's order if there was an order from the judge regarding the plaintiff, ordering you to show cause, or ordering you to do this, or you provide that, or you provide this, you object.
We never had such an order.
Well, okay, that's good. So what you want to do then is you want to object to the plaintiff in other words, the plaintiff is making requests, and she wants you to answer to her request, correct?
Well, what they're trying to do, let me throw a thought in here. What they're trying to do is turn it back onto you for you to prove their case is what they're trying to do.
I understand.
Prove their case. That's the problem. Right?
So you have to object.
Failed in their structure of what they were supposed to prove to their case. So they're trying to bring it back in so that way they can try to find something that you put in that statement to that court to go after you to reopen the case.
Okay.
Now let me ask you another question. Do you know why they're doing that?
I would say to get me to recontract with them.
The reason why they're getting you to answer to them is because they want to move for a final judgment, and that's called a notice of final judgment.
Okay.
The plaintiff wants to file a notice of final judgment upon you so she can close the case and dismiss it. That's how she's going to win. When you answer to them, what you did is you put yourself in their jurisdiction under secrecy, because, see, they didn't want you to know that. But when you answer to them and you don't object, you automatically put yourself in their jurisdiction.
Okay.
So you have to object to the answer. So you object.
I asked all of that. You know, like I said, they didn't get summary judgment.
No,
so
I understand that, but that's what they're trying. That's what they're working on, is what I'm trying to tell you.
I see.
They want you to answer to them as to showing cause, and then they're going to come back and say, well, that's not the correct answer, or that's not the right evidence as to you showing cause, and I now move this court forward for a final judgment. That's what they're going to do upon you.
Okay.
That's how it works.
Okay.
So in other words, I'm giving you heads up. I'm telling you what they're going to do and what they're going to do. And what they're going to do is they're going to move for a final judgment, because they're going to say that you didn't show the proper cause as to you objecting to them. You know, in other words, going against them.
Okay.
So you have to know how to object to the plaintiff. If the plaintiff is making you answer to them, you object. Excuse me, this is not my complaint. This is your complaint. You're supposed to be. In other words, they're supposed to be proving you wrong. You're not supposed to be proving them wrong.
So they bought the case, so they should bring the proof.
Absolutely.
I understand exactly
it.
I got you. Mm-hmm.
In other words, you come with clean hands. You're innocent until proven guilty. So you tell the plaintiff, and you address the plaintiff, whoever the hell it is, you address it. I object to your request or order, because remember, they're supposed to verify that complaint before they can bring a claim against you. That's called a non-verified complaint.
Right, and they have to actually have physical paper evidence of a contract. What they're trying to do is bring you back in to their contract, is what they're doing.
Okay. Exactly right. What they're trying to do is they're forcing you to prove them wrong when it's supposed to be the other way around. And what they're going to do is, because you're not giving the proper information, they're going to tell the court, meaning the judge, Your Honor, she's not providing the proper evidence pertaining to our request. I now move this court forward for a final judgment. Judge is going to say, case dismissed. And that means you're going to lose.
Okay, I understand.
Yeah, they're sneaky on this stuff, because this is how they work. They do this stuff. They get paid to do this. This is why these guys make $250,000 a year minimum.
Now, in case the judge, because it happened to me.
Okay.
Judge actually ordered me to answer to the plaintiff.
Wow.
So I object, Your Honor. Excuse me, you can't order me to answer to the plaintiff. But okay, since it's now an order, because remember, when the judge says it's an order, you have to apply. Okay, Your Honor, I'll answer your order, but you're not going to like my answer. And then you come right back in the letter, okay, because you have to apply to the order. Judge is the upper hand here. So you come back and you object in writing, of course, because it's an order and you're gonna do it in writing.
Anyhow, we got this one handled. Let's move to the next caller. You got that information. We can get other information to you. You got the contact.
Okay. Thank you all so much.
Next caller.
Thank you, Michelle.
You're welcome.
Okay, another caller. Go ahead.
Yeah, if I may.
Go ahead, May.
This is Daniel. We got two sisters here we're dating. One's real ugly and one's real beautiful. And they have very similar names. The Constitution of the United States of America and the Constitution of the United States. Now, how do you discern which one they're talking about? I've seen oaths of office to the Constitution of the United States of America, and I've seen oaths of office to the Constitution of the United States.
That's where one has to write back and clarify their standing, and that's why under the 1938 Foreign Registration Act, you file that with their structure to clarify what they want to state. You have to clarify, they have to clarify back to you their standing by that through the Fair Registration Act.
By date.
Say that again.
Say what?
By date of the Constitution.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they don't file it in their oaths of office. They just say the Constitution of the United States.
Excuse me.
And I approached the...
Hang on, let Dave finish, Dave.
By legislation.
Say what, sir?
Which Constitution are we referring to, and by whom was the second Constitution created?
Well,
that's the response. Daniel, he's saying that's the response that you have to write. You have to file back to them. You have to clarify it.
Okay, next question is I approached Bo Hoover, the House parliamentarian here, and asked him which constitution the state of West Virginia was acting under. And I gave him 3 weeks to decide which one. I called him back, and he said that we haven't decided yet, or our lawyers are working on it.
Do it
So
in writing.
the House parliamentarian doesn't know which constitution they're working under.
Right, but you have to put this in writing, Daniel, to them, not hearsay.
Do it
Right.
in writing and demand an answer within 21 days.
Okay, that's what I'll do. Because they're oath of office to the U.S., not to the USA.
After the 21.
After the 21 days, and in that way, when they cannot make it, you file a judgment on them for treason through the Fair Act and publicly.
Bingo.
That's simple. Once you write that, they're screwed. They're going to shit their pants.
Make sure you put it in writing.
Everything.
You're going to hold them accountable if they fail to answer in 21 days.
And
you
everything
put
has.
I've had them throw Miss Prison of felony papers in the trash can. Never answer.
That's the point. We all been there, but now we're holding them to the fire now. All right, we know what they've done in the past. Now we're working on what's going on today. We have to prove today, not yesterday.
Well, what I'm saying is the West Virginia Supreme Court did this. And in the 4th District Court, just kind of pushed to the side and said they separated all the evidence from the case.
Yeah, but Daniel, the one point that you've missed is not filing on them.
I have filed on them. They threw it away.
Filed on them. You didn't file under the Registration Act. You didn't file treason on them. You didn't file, So
I did file treason warrant upon the Constitution under U.S. versus Will, and they ignored it.
I'm not arguing with you. You filed it in their jurisdiction, in their court, for them to respond to you. Take it out, like I told you before. Take it out of their hands.
What Ed is trying to say, Daniel, is you have to move it forward. You have to give them that 21-day notice, like David just said, and then you serve it 3 times. If they don't answer to you, hey, that's a plus on your side, then what you do is then you move forward into a new session, a new court, and you file a claim that they didn't, in other words, U.S. Court of Claims, and you say to that, and of course your claim is going to be what? They didn't answer to you. It doesn't matter all what you did prior. They didn't answer to you, so they're ignoring you. That's a violation right there. Because you told them that you're giving them 21 days, and if they don't comply, you have to know how to use the verbiage to hold them accountable. I'm going to hold you accountable under law if you don't apply or answer to my requests. You have to put that on your documentation.
Yeah, you have to spell it out, Daniel. If you don't spell it out, you cannot assume. Assume is an ass.
That's right.
Okay?
So you have to
when you read the Bankruptcy Act and you read the structure under 138, if they don't comply with those structures, they're unemployable and mandatory they lose their bond.
Okay, well, I have 4 Supreme Court justices and a circuit court judge to file on, and a federal judge.
I know, but you keep fighting it in their home. You cannot go into somebody's home and fight in their home. You have to take it out on the street to fight them. You can't take it in their home to go fight them.
I'm aware of that.
Okay.
But what I'm saying is that when it got to the 4th District Court, they chose to separate the evidence from the case and do the same thing.
Daniel, you're not hearing it. Or did you take it to Washington, D.C.? Did you take it to Philadelphia? Did you file in Washington, D.C. of their violation of oath?
No, I did not.
Right. That's what we're talking about. You're filing and playing their game. You're letting them control you. You're letting them bring out their statute of limitations out on you. So they can sit there and say, oh, statute of limitations, you screwed up. And you go, wait a minute, I was never told this. This isn't that. No. You got to take the football and play it on a different football field.
Okay. Well, there's no statute of limitations on fraud or treason.
No, but you have to make the record and prove it. You cannot take that. We can all say that. We all know that's a fact. But until it's in a courtroom, it's hearsay evidence.
That's correct. Although I have the affidavits that they refuse to accept.
Right, and that's the one thing you need to make the record on. Make sure that record is public. You need to make sure that record is filed in their administration of their employment. And that's by they get a paycheck from the British government in Washington, D.C., called the District of Columbia. And that's where you need to file this stuff in. They're waking up there. They got it. That's why everybody's panicking with Trump right now. They don't get what's really going on in this country because if we don't save it, and if they do this stuff, we're not going to have a country. We're not even going to have a bloodline.
I'm well aware of that.
Okay, so start filing it in the other court structure, taking it in that, take the baseball and take it to a new baseball field. You cannot keep playing and arguing with them because they sit there and they're drinking their sherry going, this stupid idiot's doing this. Can we believe this? How much money can we make off of him this week?
Write up a claim. Write up a claim and file it with the U.S. Court of Claims in D.C.
Not Pennsylvania?
Well, both. And also, go ahead, Dave. I'm sorry.
D.C.
You don't have to be in D.C.
Don't have to be in D.C.?
Nope, you can do a claim right in his hometown.
Oh, you can do it in your own. You can do it in your local courtroom. Michelle says.
Absolutely.
Well, the claim is against the actors of the court here.
Right. But you have to file, especially file the 19th Fair Act on them.
Yeah.
I want to send him this.
I mentioned it to you before.
Now,
go ahead, Dave.
What's your email address, Daniel?
It's Daniel,
Okay.
Daniel _ Beeler, Beeler, B as in Bravo, at yahoo.com.
It's not writing.
Go on now.
It's not writing. Sorry, Susie. That's not writing. Let me get your piece of paper.
It is.
Is it writing?
Okay.
Beeler was B-E-E-L-E-R?
Yes, Daniel _ Beeler, B-E-E-L-E-R,
Okay.
at yahoo.com.
All right, Daniel, we'll come back to you. We got another one that wants to bring up a question, too, so we'll come back here. Let's get a couple more of these other ones out of the way here, and then we'll come back to people.
No.
I'll send you an email, Daniel.
Hey, Ed, this is David.
Hey, Dave. Go ahead, Dave.
Yeah, I know David said it earlier, but he said Article 2, Section 5 of the Constitution shows that your bloodline?
Yes. Deals with the oath of the President of the United States. And that establishes your bloodline.
I looked that up, and all I saw was Section 4. I couldn't find Section 5.
Yeah.
Article 2.5 is, depends on which constitution you're looking at, because some of them are written the same.
And I think it is, some of it is under Section 4.
Article 2.5.
Oh, Article 2. Okay.
Actually, I think it's square bracketed 5.
Yeah, I think you're correct.
What is it?
Article 2, then it's in square brackets 5.
Oh, okay.
And it deals with oath of office for the President of the United States.
It should be also in your Constitution book, handbook.
Okay. I'll look that up. That was all I had a question about.
It's
Also,
basically paragraph 5.
How's the weather been holding up down there for you?
We got a small little sprinkle coming up this week. We haven't had rain for a while, so everything's been able to dry up over here. So that's the good thing. It's just trying to get everything cleaned up. And now we got a plague of mosquitoes coming out from everywhere. So that's the other thing now we're having to deal with.
Were you in Florida?
No, sir, I'm in Houston.
Houston. Oh, God, yes. You guys got nailed.
He's only had a little water around his home.
Yeah, it was up there. Fishing got good, that's for sure.
That's good. At least you know you had food.
Yeah. But anyway, that was all my question was. I'll yield.
Okay, Dave. And so we got that one. So we could go back to anybody else. Anybody else there would like to bring something up, or we go back to another conversation too.
Hey guys, yeah, I was just checking in here. I was listening to the website a little earlier, or the YouTube, and it was I don't know if the sound is back now. So anyway, looks like there was a little trouble with the sound. But how you guys doing?
Doing good.
Hey, yeah, good. Oh, that's good. Yeah, I'm glad to hear. Yeah, this is Ray calling, Ed, from
I know.
Hawaii.
Yeah, I got you, Ray.
All right. So yeah. Anyway, I'm preparing for my case tomorrow. I'm working with, but it's encouraging to hear that people are getting some response from filing the FARA, and I think I explained to you, Ed. I went through and read, and once you realize that basically a foreign principal is defined as a corporation, and then all of the government agencies are corporations, then that's where the FARA begins to make a little sense, right?
Right.
I don't know if that makes any sense to anybody else, but as you read it a little bit, it's kind of it's like the foreign agent for the Foreign Immunities Act. It sounds as if it's for foreigners, but really, as it was written, it was for bloodline Americans.
Yeah, that's the point. We had a lot of this stuff that was put in place to protect us, That's why, I get frustrated, cause like when I was on Guerrilla Radio the other day, and they're going off about, it doesn't matter, this country's open to everybody, just because they're immigrants, and they don't want to stand up for what's right, and of course they go after me on my religious beliefs, but that's fine. I don't have a problem with that, because I go after people on their religious beliefs, because to me, when you want to talk religion, we're not supposed to talk religion. Religion is a foreign body. It's not part of this country when it comes down to it. Our country wasn't founded on religion, because if it really was founded on religion, and you guys wrote this article and sent it to me about how, it was founded under Bible and all this stuff, why do you think the First Amendment was put in place? To separate the corporation from us, the British government. It was put in place to...
Remember, Ed, that the Constitution very plainly spells it out. This Constitution shall be the supreme law of the land, and the judges in every state shall be bound thereby. Anything in the Constitution or laws of any state to the contrary, notwithstanding, U.S. Constitution, Article 6, Paragraph 2, see also Amendment 5, just compensation. In other words, you have a claim you're entitled to compensation.
That's why they can't take your...
And that's why they can't take it away from you. And these judges and lawyers who deny you paperwork of filing claims into their courtroom under the Constitution and law of the land, they're guilty of treason against the court. Lien debtors to expose the commercial lien claimant's claim and commercial lien claimant to the strict remedies of the commercial law, enough time to discover and reveal whether or not any part of the commercial lien claim is false, fictitious, or fraudulent. People need to read it and study it on liens and claims.
Which also has to do with the grace period pertaining to the 3 months, which is the Jewish law under 90 days statutory, in which the defendant's lien debtors party receiving this commercial lien process can contest the commercial lien claim of commercial lien, categorically point for point.
Why is this Jewish law shit in here?
Because that is their law.
That's their law, not
that's
law.
To me, that's
right. And that's why you need to know it. And if you don't know that shit, they're going to eat you up in court.
Yeah, but it's still falling upon the court.
That's right. That's the point. We don't quote their stuff. We quote the way the Constitution is and what their employees are supposed to do. It is good to know it, but we have to quote the employees, their status of their employment.
That is the administrative commercial lien process.
Right, but administrative commercial lien process only applies to them, not we the people.
Law.
That's right, it's part of their bullshit, Dave. That's exactly
I know
right.
that, we know that. It doesn't apply to us.
Here we go, Admiralty law once again.
It's not just Admiralty law.
Anyhow, but you're catching on. Now, Ray, you got the point where Happy Girl was bringing up the point where she's filing, and I got other people that have been filing this stuff too, and the whole point is that they're starting to pay attention because they know if they violate that, they can actually be sent to prison if the paperwork is done correctly to send them to prison. And they're freaking out. Some of these judges I know are freaking out because they're freaking out trying to figure out, how do we figure this part out? How do we know this part? And if we know this part, we can write the other stuff that will put them in prison.
Yeah, well, they deserve it.
Well, we know that, but like I said, it's up to us to do this because we have to do it. If we don't do it, nobody else is going to do that. And this is why I suggest to people, like when I send them videos and information, read it with the kids. Watch the videos with the kids. I don't care if they're 3, 4 years old. They might not comprehend it right now, But when they're 14 and 15 years old, it's gonna hit them in the back of their mind, going, "How do I know this? Where'd that come from?"
You know, I got a thought, Ed, that just came to my mind. You know, here's where they get us from the very, very beginning. Now I'm talking about those as being the plaintiffs, you know, addressing the people. Where we fail, because of course, we don't know this and we don't know law, so if you don't know law and all the facts, that's where they get us. You know, when they send you a summons and you answer, because remember, when you get a summons, you have, I believe it's 45 days to answer to that summons. No, I'm sorry, not 45 days, 21 days. If you don't answer within that time frame, of course, that proves that their claim as the plaintiff would win because you didn't answer. Either way, they got you. Where we fail is we can object to the summons at the very beginning, but you know what? We don't. When you think about it, what do? We answer to the summons, and we try to prove our innocence. When in reality, what we should have probably done is object to the notice of the summons to begin with, and just say I don't comply. I don't agree. And that's it. And just say that and leave it alone, and that would be your answer.
You got it. And you're standing on your evidence.
Well, you don't have any evidence. Well,
no, you file on your paperwork when you go in and file your stuff. You already got evidence, like when you filed on your stuff. You have evidence to stand on.
Unless, of course, you're guilty and you know.
Well, if you're guilty, you're screwed. You have to deal with that. You have to make amends yourself. You can't sit there and go, I'm getting out of it because, you know, that's the way it works. That's like the priests that are raping children saying, oh, they're not going to charge us with raping children, and the cops ain't going to charge us with raping children because we take care of their families and we give them blessings, because if they don't pay the pendants to the church, they don't get sanctioned. And that goes back to the Treaty of 1213 with King John and all the bullshit. And if you want to go back to the 12th century, that was the monk. What the hell was the monk's name that started all that?
Well, you know, the commercial lien is the administration commercial lien, meaning I'm talking about the court now. That's the lien that they are using against your birth certificate as your birthright name, and that's why they want you to answer to the summons, because as soon as you answer to the summons, bingo, they got you right in their jurisdiction, and before you know it, now you're in court and you're trying to prove your innocence, right? So
well, you got a point there, but it's not your, Michelle, it's not your
I'm talking about as to the due process pertaining to the court.
Right, but if you actually read the structure, it's not your birth name. They call it a Christian name. That's what they started doing, and doing that when they started doing the birth certificate was a Christian name under Roman Vatican law, and it's a Christian name.
And that's what I was addressing. That's what I was. Well, anyway, that's part of the documentation I was reading to you. And that's why they want you to answer within the 21 days or within the 3 months period, which is the Jewish date. And
right.
Starting the statutory. And see, that's why you have to know due process of regarding the court, the federal procedures of the court. That way you can hold them in contempt of court under those procedures if they had not answered to you within the 3 days or within the 21 days, and depending on the scenario and what status you are in as you're addressing the court.
That's where I agree with you on that, Michelle, because you have to know their game to respond back to them, but not respond back to them what they're trying to get you to respond back to them. You want to know their game, how to respond to put them in check.
Right. Exactly.
Because I won't fill out paperwork, any structure of what the court does or anything. I've never done that. I do it my way, and that's what freaks out people, because I don't put plaintiffs and all that stuff. I write injured party and stuff, and me and Dave even did that with the one we did on lawful and legal with Judge Scalia. Because when you start dressing and using some of their names, you automatically go into their jurisdiction by using that structure. And this is part of what I read tonight. When you're using inhabitant, resident, citizen, national, when you use those type of things, you're agreeing to the British government under those terminologies. So wording is so important to know the words when you talk and how the words mean. That's why I don't use the word person, citizen, because it's man or woman. Because a person, as you even read earlier tonight, a person is a lawyer, a liar. That's in the Beauvier dictionary. Of course, if you're looking at black law and Beauvier, a person is an inanimate object that doesn't exist.
Right, and keep in mind, you're correct when you as to the term, the meaning of the word person is a corporation, and that's exactly who we are
But
addressing.
you're using that word yourself, Michelle. You are saying you're a corporation member under your birth certificate bond.
Well, that's what I was talking about as to the lien. The commercial lien, that's the bond. And you have to know how that applies as you being the plaintiff and the defendant, or the defendant between the plaintiff. That commercial lien is what they're using in court against you as you being the defendant. They're not only are they using you as the defendant, but why do you think the word defendant is all in caps? Because why? They're bringing you into their jurisdiction.
That's right, I know. That's why I don't use their stuff.
I understand that, but when you're applying things to the court, these are things that we have to know, and the people need to know so they know how to address the court properly.
Right, but you have to
because they
court, not
use the
the court wants you to address
as the word defendant. You can petition the court under that, and you can accuse them for using your identity without your consent.
Michelle, you're missing the point. Michelle, you're missing the point. When you're using that by their structure, you are giving acceptance. That's like when a cop says to you, well, you know why I pulled you over? And you go, oh, well, I might have been speeding. Well, you just admitted to an infraction for him to write you a ticket. So the minute you use that structure, in their courtroom, their structure, you're giving them acceptance and authority over you. It's like when I go to court. You know, I've been to court many times, and everybody goes, well, you have special appearance and all this. And it's like, hey, I've been kidnapped and held for ransom. I've been assaulted. You know, and I say this on this. I got the YouTube videos that to prove it. Even when Judge Littlehills, and they were trying to say how I broke my probation because the cops broke in my house and robbed my house, so they convicted me for my house being robbed by the cops. And it's like, you know, what the hell? I mean, it's like we got to start putting these stuff back to man's word instead of their words. But we have to know their circumstances of their game to file on them, to put them in prison, to make sure they lose their job, their pension, and careers. If we don't do it that way, it ain't going to happen any other way. And that's what we're figuring it out. We've been watching it. I've been watching it with the court cases I've been doing for the last year. And the stuff that I've changed, a lot of stuff in the last year and a half of what I've been doing. And I've been watching these things change. I've been watching these cases get dismissed. I've been watching judges stringing on court cases for 7 months. And then all of a sudden, I've had a couple cases where the judge asked the guy and the lady in the courtroom, why are you here? And they said, I don't know. I told them, don't respond. You just say if the judge asks you that, you say you don't know. And that's what they said. And the judges say, well, you're excused. Yeah. Okay, I'm excused. I'm out. That means the case is done. He already just told you the case was done. People don't have to sit there and ask, was my case dismissed or stuff. When he excused you, that means it's done. Does that make sense? Do you see where I'm coming from?
Yeah.
Okay, so these are the points that bringing these things up. So when you're bringing this stuff up, this is the way it has to be done. And you don't want to use their words, but you want to, that's why they wrote it, we quote it, we want to use their system against them. We do not want to use their words, their legal jargon in their stuff. Once you start using their legal jargon in their stuff, you're complying with them. I mean, it's like, they got so many ways how they can bring you into their system, and you don't realize by the words that you use that you put yourself in their system, and that's why you end up in jail. You know, it's like the last time I got kidnapped and held for ransom 2 years ago. The judge said, and the bailiff, you know, the sheriff was going, well, you know, Ed, you don't have to sign these papers. And I said, I know. Do you want to sign them? I said, hell no. And the deputy would look at the other guy and says, open the cage, let him go home. You know, and then I go to court, and the judge says, well, you didn't sign the contract that I told you to sign the way it was supposed to be done. And I'm going, prove it. And then I got arrested and kidnapped because I wasn't signing the paperwork that he wanted me to sign the way he wanted it done. And I don't have to comply with him. I don't have to answer his questions. And that's what pisses him off, and that's why I'm doing what I'm doing with the governor and the other stuff I'm doing. Because if we don't start waking up the House and Senate, most of these people have been wrongfully educated, like a lot of us have been wrongfully educated. We've been backwards educated to think about the way things are supposed to be done, or we have to do it in a polite manner. I like the saying that we go back to the old animal ways. I don't want to live by man's law. I want to live by animal's law. Because at least with animal's law, hey, you know if somebody comes on and trespasses in your space, you have a right to defend it. In man's law, you have to go and plead to a court for permission to defend yourself. That's where I totally disagree with a lot of the stuff that's going out there. I don't have to ask for a plea. It's like, you know, there's people that, you know, call the police department when they got people that are breaking in their homes and they're on the phone. Can I shoot? Can I shoot? The guy is coming through the door. Can I shoot? And they're pleading for permission to defend their lives?
Wasn't there? Oh.
You know, it's like, have we lost reality here? You know, it's like I used to teach self-defense to women in California. And I used to teach them to use a pen, a key, whatever, and you go to the jugular. You go underneath the armpit. Once you punch a hole underneath the armpit, it disables the man immediately. And it's like knowing how to pressure point, how to do this stuff, because if an attacker is going to be there, you take him out. You don't sit there and go, oh, well, I have to ask permission to defend myself. No. It's your life or the other man or woman's life. It's that simple. It's like when you go hunting. You know, like when I go...
All participants are muted. Q&A session is over.
Okay. But like it's like when I go hunting. It's simple. You know, if a cougar comes after me...
Q&A session has started. All participants are muted. Q&A session is over. All participants are muted, and they can unmute themselves. All participants are muted.
Okay. So, go ahead, Dave.
I apologize. Buttons were causing issues.
Okay, electronic problem, no big deal. So, but it's like when you're going hunting and fishing. If a bear comes charging at me, I'm going to shoot the bear. I'm not going to sit there and go, oh, that's an extinct endangered animal. I'm going to give my life to that animal? You know, I don't think so. It's my life or that animal's life. And that's the way the law of the jungle works. And if we forgot, if we're so conditioned and dumbed down today by emotions and feelings or feelers or whatever, some women's crisis creation center want to call this crap for women.
Well, you got to remember, Ed, that God gave man, what was that? Jurisdiction over the animals.
Well, God didn't give it to us because if the animal eats us, we lost.
No, I'm saying He gave us the, I can't think of a word they use in the scripture, but we are higher than the animal, and therefore we have the rights to his life.
Well, it's the same thing, because isn't it Title 7, 136, Section D, we're all animals?
Well, that's what Congress made us.
Well, yes, they had no choice to make us that way because...
Made us sovereign, so how can Congress, through legislation, alter our sovereignty?
Well, it's not altering our sovereignty. It's proving that we're animals. Just because we have a brain and we think that we're more intelligent than the dog and cat.
Well,
but
if Congress thinks we're animals, then we need to charge them with cruelty to animals.
No, that's what I just wrote in the last 5 court cases. I charged them with cruelty to animals.
Good.
So no, that's what I tell people when they kidnap you and held for ransom. You gotta charge them with cruelty to animals, mistreatment of animal abuse. You gotta quote the animal abuse stuff in their cases because then they can't sit there and walk out of it because They wrote it, they put it in it, so they gave us their legal definition to protect ourselves from, what is that? Involuntary or mandatory servitude of enslavement. So when they take away your rights and throw your butt in jail, they're taking away your rights and putting you in a jail cell and saying that now you're a caged animal. Well, you're not supposed to cage an animal. You're not supposed to technically put an animal on a chain or a rope to, give them 5 feet or 6 feet all day in the backyard or something, Comes down to common sense. Of course,
logic. Doesn't have to be common sense. Logic. Pure logic.
Principles and logic.
Yeah, no, I agree, because, we're all animals, so, how could the Creator give domain over an animal when we're an animal?
Well, he gave man dominion over the animals.
Well, that's what the Bible says, but that's not what the nature says when you're out hunting and fishing or if you're living out in the woods.
Well,
you don't know what the Bible says.
Prove to me that the corporation created the animal. The corporation can only legislate that to which they create. If they didn't create the animal, I'm sorry, they don't have the right to license him.
That's right. They didn't create the animal because man and woman created the animal, or female or male for whatever species created it.
Exactly. Before government was, God created the earth, the heaven, the earth, and the animals, and the man, and everything in it thereof.
Well, I go by the Creator and the Great Spirit, Mother Earth.
If God created, therefore there was no government in the beginning, was there?
That's why I can't use biblical words, because it's the Creator and Mother Earth, because biblical words is the problems we have with religion.
So we're basically
on the same using the words.
In the beginning, in the big inning, the ball game that was created, okay. Who created what? Government wasn't created till years and centuries later.
Well, we know the government wasn't, but we, the people of this country, is the government. We're not talking about a foreign territory or China or England or something like that, because their government has authority over their people. Our government, we supposed to have...
back prior to the establishment of this nation, and into what was written in the scrolls.
Yeah, but that's from a foreign country.
Don't care. They're going to use it against us, we'll use it against them.
No, I agree with you there. We know that one, yes.
So if they're saying in their words, okay, God gave dominion of the animals to man, it means that government never had dominion over the animals.
Right.
To legislate, license, or any of the other bullshit they're trying to pull.
Changing everything into a privilege, yes.
And therefore, that's why every license and all this other crap they're pulling to rape, rob, and pillage, null and void on face for false claim.
I agree with you there. So, but anyhow, Dave, I'm looking at it, it's about 8 o'clock my time. It's got to be 11 your time.
Yeah, just exactly 11.
So I'm thinking about, we'll open up the floor one more time, see if anybody's got anything to say, and then if not, I'll let you start with your closing words, and then I'll boot it out, and we'll call it a night.
Okay.
All participants are unmuted.
Floor is open.
Anyone with a question? Going once. Going twice. Gone and gone.
Okay.
All participants are muted.
Well, thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for tuning in tonight. We appreciate your participation. I would like to point out the fact that Michelle and I will be a guest speaker at the Ohio. What's the name of that organization? Tea Party. Next Thursday. And it will be very interesting to bring out the structures that are very fraudulent in this nation to the participants of that organization.
Mm-hmm.
I sometimes, due to my stroke, I have a little bit of trouble recalling names, so forgive me for the Tea Party incident. We are very, very pleased to have the opportunity to speak to the Tea Party in relationship to a lot of issues that, having talked to the regional chairman here, has noted that he was ignorant of what we were talking about. So anyway, he invited us, therefore, to attend and speak. So we accepted it. But that will be again next Thursday, and I don't have the location yet. They have to email that to me. So anyway, but again, thank you very much for joining us. I hope you got an education or learned something tonight that you may not have known. But remember, the judge is not the court. He is an officer of the court. And he can be held accountable for fraud upon the court. So whatever he does in his court is he is accountable for in his public, private, and public capacities, and you have the right to recluse him for stupidity in law. So don't just sit there and take his crap. The minute he tells you he's going to not accept your paperwork, you recluse him. Because you have a right to defend yourself. So with that, I will turn it back to Ed.
Okay. I would like to thank everybody for joining us tonight. It was a very good conversation. I hope it was very educational for those. I'm glad to see that others are taking suggestions and opinions from us by our research, because we're doing the same thing. I mean, we're actually filing our own paperwork. We're doing the same thing. We're figuring out the system the way they wrote it, but that's the point. They wrote it to protect us, not to protect them, because if they did that, we're under a monarchy. And this country is not under a monarchy, and we are not a devil's democracy. And I call it the devil's democracy because democracy says if I rape, rob, and pillage and everybody else joins with me, that's acceptable. That's why we have road pirates on the street today instead of public servants. I remember growing up in the Bay Area, when cops, public servants used to ask permission to come on people's property before they could enter. And if the man was not there, they had to ask permission from the woman. And if there was no man of the house, the woman was the head of the house. So let's get back to common sense back in this country, and let's educate our kids so they know that their rights are secure so long as they know their rights and read this stuff. And I do recommend, I don't care if your kid's 5 years old, let them start reading this stuff. People say, oh, they're too, and I've had people say this, they're too young to understand this, they wouldn't know it. They do know it. You have a kid start reading this at 5. My God, when he's 15, he might actually be qualified by their system to be a lawyer at 15. It happens to people like that. He gets to know the system. And that's the point. It's called the system for a reason. And we have a constitutional right, not privileges. Now, we do have to respect those rights for our immigrants that are coming in that want to have a future here, but they have to respect our laws called the Constitution. There is no amnesty. There is no forgiveness. There's no kindness. There's no welfare for them. If they don't have a job, they don't have entitlement here. We have entitlement in this country by our bloodline. And
there is no Sharia law in this country either, so if you want Sharia law, you go back where you came from.
Yeah, because I think it's time to start taking it to the streets. Because that's all I grew up in, knowing how to deal with things on the street level. You know, that's the way I grew up. And then starting to do the legal system and then doing the pleading. That was the crazy stuff. And I agree with Dave. Sharia law, take it. Bury it. We don't want it. You know, and the Constitution gives men and women equal rights. Nobody has a right over one or another to tell somebody else how to live. And if people want to believe in their book or their scriptures, well, if the God says he's supposed to judge, let him judge. It's not your place to judge. It's his place. So practice what you preach or what you read or what you say. And always remember to honor yourself first and respect those around you. Without that...
The book says, judge not lest ye be judged.
Yep. Well, I like the other one. I don't like the Bible. You know that one. But do unto others, you want others to do unto you. You know, you want to treat them like crap, and then when they treat you like crap, you're going to whine and complain? Doesn't work that way.
That version that says, do unto others as you'd have them do unto you, only do it to them first.
Yeah, there's a lot of people out there that do that one and believe that one. You know.
That's kind of the way the courts are.
So, anyhow, with that one, I would like to say, may the Great Spirit bless you. May Mother bless you with your food and water. And without the Great Spirit Mother, we have no survival, we have no life, we have no future. Remember that major point, because it doesn't come from a test tube. It's living organisms, not with this fantasy that's brought out. You know, it's like, you know, that is the point. And then the other point I've been posting up, and I'll get this on the wall here pretty soon, and I'm going to be quoting this in an email I got to send out, but a fatal defect in every federal case since March 1991. All judgments are void unless there was an injured party. And I'll have that on I got that on my wall. We'll get that on the site sometime tonight. I believe it's on Dave's wall. I put it on there a couple days ago. These are things that were popping up with the new structure that they wrote that is making public. And if we don't protect the bloodline and your children, my children, I don't have children, but, you know, your bloodline, my bloodline, the structure of those things, there is no future for anyone. And if we save our country, then you can have world peace. But this fantasy of people going, we need world peace? I don't care what goes on in another country. It's not my problem what the Vatican does. My problem is when they come here, that's what pisses me off. They don't have a right to be here. So with that, I would like to say, with that, be blessed, be positive, and always remember to have faith in yourself first. If you can't trust yourself, you can't trust nobody.
Good night, all.
Well, I remember a teacher that I had. Now, I went through the 7th grade. I went to the 7th grade. I left home when I was 10 years old because I was hungry. And I used to, this is true. I work in the summer and I go to school in the winter. But I had this one teacher. He was the principal of the Harrison School in Vincennes, Indiana. To me, this was the greatest teacher, a real sage of my time, anyhow. He had such wisdom. And we were all reciting the Pledge of Allegiance one day. And he walked over, this little old teacher. Mr. Laswell was his name. Mr. Laswell. He says, he says, I've been listening to you boys and girls recite the Pledge of Allegiance all semester. And it seems as though it's becoming monotonous to you. If I may I recite it and try to explain to you the meaning of each word. I, me, an individual, a committee of one, pledge, dedicate all of my worldly goods to give without self-pity, allegiance, my love and my devotion to the flag, our standard, Old Glory, a symbol of freedom. Wherever she waves, there's respect, because your loyalty has given her a dignity that shouts freedom is everybody's job. United. That means that we have all come together. States, individual communities that have united into 48 great states, 48 individual communities with pride and dignity and purpose, all divided with imaginary boundaries, yet united to a common purpose, and that's love for country. And to the republic, a state in which sovereign power is invested in representatives chosen by the people to govern. And government is the people, and it's from the people to the leaders, not from the leaders to the people, for which it stands. One nation, meaning so blessed by God, indivisible, incapable of being divided, with liberty, which is freedom, the right of power to live one's own life without threats, fear, or some sort of retaliation. And justice, the principle or qualities of dealing fairly with others. For all, which means, boys and girls, it's as much your country as it is mine. And now, boys and girls, let me hear you recite the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Since I was a small boy, 2 states have been added to our country, and 2 words have been added to the Pledge of Allegiance: under God. Wouldn't it be a pity if someone said that is a prayer, and that would be eliminated from schools too?
Well, thank you for listening to the Disclaimers by Davidlee Buess and Edward Johnston. Today is September 18th, 2017. It is currently 8:12 Pacific Standard Time. And thank you for listening, and have a good night.
This session is no longer being recorded.